Good afternoon, gentlemen of the Bigs. It is Tuesday, August the 6th, 2019. Week 17 in the Bigs has just concluded. And what an amazing week we just had. What an incredible race we have in the last 5 weeks of this season. And it is going to be an absolute dogfight the rest of the way. We have 8 teams between 20 games. Like, it is absolutely tightening up in a hurry. Along with me this week, as always, and my opponent for this week, Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. How are you, sir?
Joe, good to be back. Great start from you just right now, because this is probably my favorite week so far. Just a ton of spoilers here, a lot of just hard work from every one of the managers. Unbelievable to see the heart and the energy coming out of these guys. And we'll start off with you and I, and what, business as usual, same old story, I guess, right?
You know, Benny, it's one of those things where every single year I look forward to a matchup with you. And for the last couple of years, for whatever reason, we've played each other twice in the regular season. You know, every once in a great while, we do end up only facing each other once a year, but it's always a week I mark on my calendar. Last year, it was a week where I was spending time with you in New York. This year, it was actually the week I left. But this time by, holy shit, what a matchup. I do get the win again, 10-9. I take both of the season matchups against you. That is now, it's actually last year we split. Overall, since 2005, this matchup was the tiebreaker. We were 14-14-2 coming into this matchup, so that puts me ahead 15-14-2 all time, including playoffs. This year, again, I sweep both of it. Ben, you asked me to look all of this up and find out about our lifetime matchups. I want to hit on that first, and then we'll get to this one in particular. What I found really interesting is, and I brought this up to James McCloskey this morning before I left work. I said, you know, Ben owned me for 7 years until 2012 when Ben beat me in the semifinals. And since then, I'm 9-3-1 against him since the beginning of 2013.
Yeah, that's when it all started, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
It was one great win in 2012. The game so much different now.
Oh yeah.
That was the first year of relief appearances, but we were still making moves the day before. There was no moves limit.
Right.
The teams that made the consolation bracket, they could still make adds and drops.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the Wild Wild West back then.
It was insane. And, you know, there was like 300 moves a season. You know, it was insane.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what I do know is that it just felt like for a certain period of time now, for quite a few years, it just felt like ownage. And then I asked you to look up the numbers, because I had a feeling, and as we say, since my win against you in the playoffs, 9-3 with one tie, that's ownage, man. That's just ownage, and this is no look.
Yeah.
This is brutal if you look at it in the aspect of I'm in 8th or 9th place. I really need a win here. For me, in a technicality, it's just another page off the calendar, and that's what I needed to do.
Right.
But for this rivalry aspect, for the fact that you've won 2 years in a row and 3 in the last 6 years, and the fact that no matter what happens, everyone would be okay with you not making the playoffs this year.
I'm sure they would. And the fact that I'm sitting in 6th right now doesn't make me feel very good about that. But
Right.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't make anyone else feel good about it either.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had the opportunity, I should have squished the bug. I miss out on that opportunity. Let's get into all of it.
Sure. This week, I take a 10-9 win. I will certainly take the win after 2 straight losses, and losing like 3 of my last 4. I really hit the skids recently, so I will take a win and get healthy here. I win by 2 triples, a steal, and 2 wins. Benny, you won. Wait till you hear this roll out. You won by 2 RBIs, a strikeout, and a strikeout, an error, less than 1/10,000th of a point in on-base percentage, a loss, a home run given up by a pitcher, a walk given up by a pitcher, and a relief appearance. That is 8 of the 9 categories of either 1 or 2 counting stats in that category. We also tied in home runs and saves. And that's right, I tied Ben in saves for a guy who didn't have a closer a week ago. I tied Ben in saves with 3.
Yep.
On your bench this week, you went... Now, I calculated this 2 ways, right? Because Sunday you dumped out your entire team. So, without counting Sunday, you went 6 for 34 with a 176 batting average, 2 runs, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, and 8 strikeouts. Including Sunday, you went 18 for 71, which is a 253 batting average, 10 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, a homer, 13 RBIs, 2 steals, 10 walks, and 11 strikeouts. Do you have any idea how you could have flipped a couple of categories on Sunday if you had played these guys?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course I do. And I could think all day and, go through in my head how I was planning on doing this guy instead of this guy or these 2 guys. But that's not what happened, Joe. I went with playing my best player, 1 guy, because I wanted to ensure strikeouts. That was it, man. I was ready to lose the week about 11-8 or 10-8, whatever it was going to be, and hope for the best with relief pitching.
Yeah.
And hope for maybe a save. But at the end of the day, I was only going for 1 category, and I ended up getting one that I was like, if he has a bad enough day, I'll win on base percentage.
And you won on base percentage in my offense's last at bat of Juan Soto. Juan Soto, we were on the phone at the time, and it was 11-8, and it was, hey, good game, everything's done well. Juan Soto is like 0 for 2 with 2 walks or something like that.
No. At that point, I think he was 0 for 3 with the walk.
Okay, so we're discussing this, like, for all intents and purposes, this is over, and it was 0 for 3 with a walk at that point.
You also called me before I could, there was still an opportunity for me to either bench or start Chapman. And I was just, as well as Moreland, just in case he might have come in for a pinch hit. Maybe he changes on base percentage. But I wasn't going to answer the phone and talk to you until that first pitch was thrown. You know that.
Well, yeah, the game hadn't started because they were in a rain delay. That was my big thing. Like, the game technically, like, rosters had locked as far as that was concerned. So that's why I was calling. In any event.
I think I remember differently, but we'll see.
Okay. In any event, as far as moves are concerned for the week for you, you streamed Dylan Cease, who I'm actually streaming right now against Bobby as the White Sox are playing the Tigers. He gave you a great start, 7 innings. He did take the loss, but a 3.86 ERA, 6 strikeouts. But you also streamed Trey Wingenter, who ends up giving you the relief appearance you need to win the category.
Yeah.
It's just far from what you would want with a 54 ERA and a 9 whip with a homer. Then the next day, you have the meltdown of Taylor Cole. Tell me about Taylor Cole and Dylan Peters, what you were trying to do there with those 2 guys who faced off, I forget who it was against, maybe Detroit?
No, it was Cleveland, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and my whole thought process there was I ensure relief appearance. Funny enough that Yahoo really doesn't have their stuff together, if I can avoid the profanity there. And they had one guy as the starter, and then I went to Baseball Press, and I had the other guy as the starter.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who's starting, Cole or Peters? Well, one of them's probably the opener, something like that. And my guess is the other one's going to come in. So I wanted to ensure a relief appearance there. And sure enough, I needed every single one of them,
Right.
as we discussed.
Right.
So at that point, it's early in the week, and I know that you were hungry to chase that category, Joe.
And I did.
So,
I chased the hell out of that category.
You really did, and you did a hell of a job, and you forced me to play defensively, because I didn't want to give up a home run. I didn't want to take a loss. So you'll see that on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there was choices to, bench certain guys, bench certain pitchers, because I wanted to ensure a relief appearance without getting crushed.
Yeah.
So I win by one walk given up. I win by a home run given up. I win by one loss. And all things considered, everything that I had to swing towards the end of the week, it worked in my favor, and I did it right. But on the road, you're right, man. And honestly, we could talk about that decision with the Colts. I understand that guy did horribly, and the Indians and actually, what's funny is Peters, he didn't pitch an awful game.
No, Peters pitched actually really well in relief. He finished the game. He finished the game for his team. Those are the only two guys who went that day for that team, was Cole and Peters.
So, and sometimes, when a team and the Angels at that point, they're still thinking, we're kind of in this. We're an under 500 team, but we have a talented team, and we need someone to eat innings right there and, give the bullpen a rest and then go on from there.
Yeah.
So, for me, man, it all started with the decision to pick up Gerardo early in the week. Because if I pick up somebody else, like Wainwright, there was a couple of different guys out there that I was already thinking, kicking it around and wondering, who's the guy that I want to pick up? And I was thinking, you know what? How about this guy? And firstly, I thought he was in Safeco. And I was like, yeah, in Safeco, it's a pitcher's park. And then I looked at it again, I was like, hitters, he's home. Even better. I know it's the hitter's park, but I like it.
Okay.
And I started watching a game, and I was like, you know what? This guy's pitched, he throws some strikeouts. All right, he's got some stuff. And then he gives up a dinger. And then he gives up a dinger that almost gets robbed. It barely doesn't get robbed. And it's Domingo Santana. And I'm like, awesome. That's a guy that I traded for and I had, a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And I dropped him on Sunday to, make a move for something else. So, I'm watching this game and, wow, this is an awful way to start. And I think that was Tuesday. It was either Monday or Tuesday.
It was Tuesday. I'm looking at it right now, yeah.
Right. So, it all started there, and it was okay enough. But then the next thing that I think happened was Tanaka, right? Wednesday?
Let me take a look. I believe so, though. Wednesday you had... Yeah, Wednesday was interesting. You had Tanaka go 4. I think he gave up...
He wasn't good. He wasn't good. It was okay, right?
It was a 4.50 ERA and a 2 whip.
Okay.
The whip wasn't good, but everything else was okay. But you also got 6 relief appearances that day. Only one guy gave up a run. So overall in the day, you end up with a 2.53 ERA. I think you'll take that.
Right.
Why
don't you go into the key matches, or we'll never finish this.
Right. Well, I mean, I haven't even touched on what I did for the week. On my bench this week, I went 7 for 28. That's a 250 batting average. 2 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, a steal, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. At the end of the day, I could sit here and point at Ender Inciarte. I left a steal on my bench. It didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
Yeah.
RBIs?
No, not a single RBI on my bench. Not a single RBI on my bench. You talked about pickups. I started the week with Jaime Barria, ironically of the same LA Angels. He didn't pitch too terribly for me. 5 innings, he did take the loss, gave up 2 homers. I then went to Tyler Beede, who, I saw a nice juicy matchup in Tyler Beede facing off against it was against the Phillies. And that was the day I pitched 4 pitchers. It was Verlander, Zach Gallen, Charlie Morton, and Tyler Beede. I thought this had all the makings of what I had done a couple of weeks ago, where I started 4 guys and had a sub-1 ERA over 25 innings or something. That's not what I got here. I mean, Verlander was outstanding. Gallen was very serviceable. Morton was not, and Beatty was also not. I end up going 1-2, but I still end up with a 3.80 ERA on the day. So I'll take it with the 27 strikeouts. That sort of set the pace of like, okay, Ben, I've already jumped out to this huge lead in innings pitched, and my ERA is really solid right now. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I didn't have much I could do. I had to just keep chasing and keep chasing as best as I could while just preventing certain categories that were still close, a la the home runs, the walks, going for the relief appearances while trying to avoid the loss. It was a pain in the butt, man. You really made me work all week, and you earned the win. I'll say that.
Yeah. The one move I want to highlight, and I really want your thoughts on this, is the pickup of Nick Pivetta on Saturday.
Yeah.
So the Phillies go like 16 innings or something. They're throwing their center fielder as a pitcher with a pitcher in left field. Like, it was just the most bizarre end to a game I've ever seen. And Hector Neris is serving some sort of suspension right now. Like, there was just so much going on in their bullpen. And I was looking online, I was like, okay, who is the guy that's going to come in and save a game if it's going to be a close game in the Phillies' favor late? And their entire bullpen got wiped out that day. But there's one guy out in their bullpen that's not like anybody else out there, and that's Nick Pivetta. Pivetta's a starter. He's obviously out there because of his struggles recently. And he's pitched late in games. And I'm thinking, if this guy, he only threw like 13 or 14 pitches the day before. I'm like, this is the guy. And he's talented enough that he could even go 1 or 2 innings. It's exactly what happened. Aaron Nola gives them a really great start of 7 innings. Pivetta comes in. He gives up a run, but he ends up getting the save. And that ties the saves category on Saturday to where I'm going, Benny, you got to get something here, buddy. You got to try to get this category because I'm not going to relent. All of a sudden, I've got Oberg and Leclerc and Joe Jimenez, and now apparently Nick Pivetta is going to be like a semi-closer. Like, I'm going to put that. I'm coming for you, and it ends up tied as a saves ends up tied at 3, and it's directly because of Nick Pivetta. It was a huge pickup.
Yeah, no doubt. It was huge. It only happened because the game went so deep.
The day before.
Man, it's crazy how you build your team one way, and for me, it's carried me this far. But it doesn't really mean much if a manager has a decision to do something else because he wants to save a Jansen for later on, in the season. If he, the fact that with Ian Kennedy, the Royals aren't going to win a ton of games, so there's that. Chapman comes in sometimes for saves, but one guy you didn't point to is I could see Britton getting some saves for you as well down the stretch.
Yeah, it very well could be reality. Chapman's not doing all that great.
No, and as far as I'm concerned, he's an closer because every single time he comes in, he gives up at least 1 walk. He's in his last 6 or 7 appearances, he's given up at least 1 walk, and I think 2 or 3 of them have been 2 walks. So there's only been 1 appearance where he hasn't given up a walk. He's all over the place. He's effectively wild. Whatever that means. I mean, we know what it means. It's just
he gets the job done, but he raises your blood pressure while he's doing it, a la Edwin Diaz yesterday.
Not the Yankees, because the Yankees are fine, and the Yankees can always throw the next great guy out of their awesome bullpen to go in and do the job. But as a fantasy owner of him, my thought process when I drafted him was this team should win a lot of games. This guy is going to come in the 9th, but he's good. He's not a great closer. Jansen is a great closer, but the Dodgers kill a lot of their teams.
Yeah.
And he's not really necessarily going to be in that save situation as much as possible. I mean, sometimes he'll just come in because he needs work, and he's not even coming in for a save situation.
Yeah,
So-
Jansen's only come in twice in the last 10 days, or last 10 games, and only has one save. Like,
There you go.
Yeah. They're blowing teams out, or they're, or they're taking an L,
Right. So the bullpen, all of a sudden, that's so dangerous on my team, becomes a very situational bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think I'm getting that job done with the relief appearances. I seem to still be booting the competition. I think I'm still undefeated in that category.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, man, we can look at Sunday. We can say, I could have played Kipnis, and that would have done it. I could have played Kipnis and Santana and Hayward. Hayward had the triple. I was considering he was leading off against. Oh God, tell me who was the starter on Sunday.
In Milwaukee.
Hauser.
Yeah.
Adrian Hauser sounds like an '80s villain.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, I should have totally started Hayward.
Mm-hmm.
He leads off the game with a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right there, I could have won home runs by one. Didn't do it. He did strike out, however, and that would have tied that category.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, man, I had this one strategy. I went with it. It's heartbreaking. I see that Newman had a stolen base on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the other stolen base? Kipnis. Kipnis also had a home run. That would have taken that category. I could have won stolen bases if I had just played everyone. So when we're talking about all these things that I could have won by one, in fact, even more could have happened if I just played my guys on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking to Jimmy Dunlap a few weeks ago when he was playing you, and we were talking about that conservative play and aggressive play and what to do on Sunday and how it could blow up in your face. This is an example of that.
Absolutely.
Where I wanted to play that conservative play and say, I want to ensure strikeouts. Like, I want to ensure this category. Because at the end of the day, if I take a loss like 11-8 or 10-8, Joe, I'm not in horrible shape with 5 weeks to go.
No.
So for me, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Let me take that category. I know basically what else is going to happen. I could basically save par with not allowing this to happen with home runs given up and losses. I can basically hope, because you had already decided that you were going to start Verlander.
Yeah.
Thank God he gives up 2 walks and a home run.
Yeah.
He was still awesome, but he was just enough for me to take 2 categories from you. So at the end of the day, man, we can look at all these different things. It's a 10-9 loss. It's not a brutal loss. It's a great win for you, because I think 11-8 from me to you, something that could have happened if I played on Sunday, would have been detrimental for you.
Oh, it would have been. It would have been backbreaking. It would have been.
Right. So
yeah.
it's rough in the aspect of that we're playing each other. This is a great rivalry. It was an awesome matchup. So many close categories.
Mm-hmm.
You were calling it epic going into Friday. I was like, take it easy. Let's have the weekend. But at the end of the day, you were right. It turned out to be an epic matchup, and you become the winning end of it, and it was just unbelievable for us both playing out our different strategy, such different styles, the way that we used our ads and drops. And I did just a couple of things during the week that put me behind the 8 ball, and I think you were just in cruise control from there.
I was, especially after the day where I had like the 23 innings, the 4 starts, and it was like a sub-4 ERA. I was like, okay, now I'm pretty much set in what I want to do. I was on cruise control as far as innings and strikeouts were concerned. And as soon as I saw, Taylor Cole get blown up, I'm on cruise control for ERA and WHIP as well. That's 4 categories right there. Then I'll fight you on the rest, and we'll end up where we end up. Let's get to key players here for me. For me, I won the week, and we'll go on my team first. Javier Baez had a great week for me. 333 average, 360 on base percentage, 5 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, a homer, 5 RBIs, 2 steals, a walk, 4 strikeouts, and an error. The error, obviously, is one of the 3 that ends up losing that category for me. The 4 strikeouts is 4 of the 38 that lose me that category. But, the 2 steals I couldn't have done without. The triple I couldn't have done without. I needed every homer. He's been everything I could have asked for and more when I traded for him. So I will take him. Juan Soto was another great piece this week for me. 261 average, 393 on base percentage. 393 on base percentage. If it's a 394, I win on base percentage. You know what I mean? Like that is rough to see that he was the last guy who flew out to left field to end the game. He was the last out of the game on Sunday between the Nationals and Diamondbacks, and that lowers my on base percentage just enough to give that category to Benny. He did have 3 runs, a double, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And finally, I'm going to give it to Ender Inciarte, who I picked up when Tommy Pham had his hand injury early in the week. He goes 429 with a 500 on base percentage, 2 runs, a double, a triple, 2 RBIs, a steal, and a walk for me. To just pick that guy up and plug him in for a couple of days was fantastic. You know, I benched him one day, and Tommy Pham didn't end up playing that day either. But that didn't matter because what he gave me was exactly what I needed, which was that triple and that steal. Pitching-wise for me, you hit the nail on the head with Justin Verlander.
He hit the triple? I thought Baez hit the triple.
I hit 2 this week, right? So I had one from Ender and one from Baez. Had you played the guy who hit your triple in Hayward, I would have needed both of these. So.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I see. You know what? That actually doesn't make me feel as bad, although the home run is still heartbreaking.
Yes, the home run is.
And before you get into your pitchers, I just want to say that it was going into the day, it went like this. It was going to be Kipnis and Santana, honestly. Then it changed. At some point, I said, Kipnis, I think he doesn't strike out a lot. I feel like he's due. So I was going to sit Kipnis, and my next move was going to play Frazier, Adam Frazier. That ends up being the right call, me not playing him. My thought process there was Noah Syndergaard isn't great at keeping runners on. And the day before, I don't know if you watched Saturday's game, Joe, but Adam Frazier got on a couple of times on my bench. He got a couple of hits, of course.
Yeah.
And he was going for it. He was going for a stolen base off Stroman. So I was just like, okay, I guess this guy now wants to try to steal bases if he gets on. Noah Syndergaard, that's the perfect opportunity for him. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And then as the game got closer, I was like, if I'm trying to win strikeouts right now, I realize Adam Frazier's at the top of the lineup. I realize, he's been getting on base a little bit more, and I realize he's been going for the steal. But where do I come off trying to start this guy against Noah Syndergaard if I'm trying to go for strikeouts? He's out, and then I sat him. So, anyway, go ahead, continue.
No, pitchers, for me, you hit the nail on the head with Justin Verlander, man. 13 innings, 2 wins, 23 strikeouts, a homer, 2 walks. Those break my back for those 2 stats. But I'll take the 23 strikeouts. I'll take the 0.69 ERA and the 0.54 whip. My thought going into Sunday, I had Maeda as well in the lineup originally. And I said, you know what? Maeda's a bit of a risk. I don't want to risk that and take another loss in case you picked one up from one of your relievers. But with Verlander, man, every day that he goes is an opportunity for a complete game. And I went for it. I was like, here's the chance for him to go for a complete game, you know? He's facing Seattle. I'm sorry, he was facing Cleveland. He was facing Seattle. And I said, this is a game at home in August against a really bad Seattle team. Like, he's going to rack up strikeouts. But if he can get a complete game for me, that'll be enormous. And he doesn't end up getting it. He only gets 6 innings and 10 strikeouts. But, man, I had every hope that he would end up going the distance there. Nick Pivetta, I highlighted earlier. He got me the save that I absolutely needed. 2 innings, 4 strikeouts, clean, a 1 whip. And finally, Jose Barrios has really been a solid number 2 for me all season. He continues that here. 7 innings, a win, 11 strikeouts, nothing earned, an 0.29 whip. Overall, I pitched to a 2.91 ERA over 65 innings. It was a great week on the pitching side for me, even if I do end up losing homers and walks to you. For your team, Benny, it's going to be Joey Votto. I remember early in the week that Joey Votto had a really great game. It was either Monday or Tuesday. And I thought to myself, well, this is going to be the week Joey Votto goes off, and that's not something I really want to fuck with this week. I'd prefer if he just, kept hitting in his 240s and got his walks and left me alone. But instead, this week, he hits .350 with a .417 on base, 4 runs, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Secondarily, it's Carlos Santana. Man, I think we highlight him every week. .263 average, .375 on base, 5 runs, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. And finally, it's going to be Trey Mancini, who hit .263 with a .391 on base, 3 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 4 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Anybody else on your offense you want to highlight?
No, not necessarily. I mean, the bottom line is, if I play things right with Jason Hayward, it's a whole different story.
Sure.
So I would have definitely thrown him on that list if I played him. I think Jason Kipnis did a terrific job, for the most part. I don't know. It's when I think about this matchup, man, I just think about Sunday and what could have been.
Sure.
That's all I'm thinking about at this point. I mean, Jason Kipnis still had a .333 average. Trey Turner batted .286. He had a .348. Even Mazzara, the times I played him, he had a .400 on base percentage. Got to tip my cap if I just barely won on base percentage. Mazzara was a reason why. So everything in this case really mattered for me to just hold on here.
Yeah. I do want to give a couple of shout-outs. Shout out to Justin Smoke's .059 average for the week and Adam Frazier's .067. I won average by 30 points. Thank you, boys. Appreciate that, because that made that a little bit more livable.
Let me tell you something. There's more to it than just that.
Sure.
Because if you remember, one of my pickups was Starlin Castro during the week. And the first at-bat was a walk and a run. I was like, all right. I believe it was actually a hit and a run.
Okay.
Well, it was one of them. It was either a hit and a run or a walk and a run. And I'm like, all right, that's a great start. And then from there, every single at bat, it was just a strikeout or a walk. He goes 1 for 6, 1 hit, and a run and 2 strikeouts.
Yep.
So already in the middle of the week, I just threw a 1 for 6. There was also an opportunity where where you were playing Verlander against the Indians. And I was like, you know what? I could bench Santana here. I could bench Kidis. This is an opportunity for me to play Nunez. And I was watching that Baltimore game, and Nunez, it's a couple of balls. This guy, he kind of swings where the ball, anywhere the ball is. Nunez is going to swing at it, and sometimes he can do some damage. And with 2 outs and a couple of guys on base, he drove in 2. That hit as well, that was a difference of me maybe missing out on, if I was deciding to sit Santana against Verlander, he had an 0 for 2 that day. So if I switched that in, no 1 for 6 from Castro, the smoke thing. I mean, there was a lot of things incorporated for me to just throw away batting average.
Yeah. Your pitchers this week, Benny, I'm going to give it to Blake Treinen. Blake Treinen gave you 3 relief appearances.
Yesterday was standing.
Yeah. Well, he was on your bench that day, so...
No, I'm saying yesterday was...
Oh, yesterday. Well, yeah, where he got blowed up.
Oh, God.
Now, this week against me, he gave you 3 relief appearances, 3 2/3, 2 wins, a walk, 3 strikeouts, a 2.45 ERA, and an 0.55 WHIP. I'm going to give it to Aroldis Chapman. Your sort of rant about him and the Yankees bullpen notwithstanding, he got you all 3 of the saves that you needed this week to tie me in his 3 relief appearances with 3 walks and 4 strikeouts, 3 ERA and a 1.33 WHIP. It wasn't pretty, but you needed him this week, and he absolutely came through for you when you needed him. And finally, we hit on Dylan Peters earlier. He basically is your best start of the week, even though he didn't technically start. Between Jurado and Cease and Tanaka, there just wasn't really... You didn't even start Chris Sale this week against me.
Right.
That's your best start, 7 2/3. Looks like 3 earned runs, a walk.
It's my best relief appearance also.
Yeah, I mean, the best single relief appearance that wasn't a save, yeah, absolutely. It's handcuffed by the fact that Taylor Cole opened the game by giving up, I don't know, what was it, 5 or 6 earned runs before he made an out. Like, it's a 108 ERA and a 15 whip. We highlight this because we're not going to count that as worst starts of the week because it was an opener. So I think that sort of sets the precedent of, like, you have to be the featured starter and start the game for our worst starts of the week. Fair?
Right. Fair.
Okay. I mean, look, if it's Masahiro Tanaka and he goes out there and gives up 2/3 of an inning and, like, 8 runs, then yeah, like, he's the guy that they anticipated.
Like yesterday.
Yeah, they weren't using him as the opener. So, Benny, it's another great week for us. Again, I can't believe that our matchup is 15-14-2 lifetime and 9-3-1 since the start of 2013 in my favor. Here's to the rivalry continuing. And you know what?
Many years to come. Yeah,
and here's the thing. This might not be the last time we see each other.
Oh, I know it's not. You mean this year?
This year. This might not be the last time we see each other this year.
Absolutely not. There's a definite possibility of some, epic matchups in the playoffs.
Sure.
How everybody's been playing in the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
But in my eyes, firstly, the decision to start Verlander going for the win and a complete game, that becomes a big difference if by chance, somehow you run into some trouble here in the next few weeks, and, things come awry and you're not able to make it in. I mean, 10-9, you'll take it.
Yeah.
You would have liked some more, but you'll take it. For me, it's another page off the calendar. As I said, close the books on another incredible matchup. Tip my cap to you. You've had my number for quite a while now. Perfect opportunity for me to turn the page and win it this week. I miss out on that opportunity on Sunday. It's tough, but I'm in a pretty good position here. And here's to you, man. Good luck going forward.
Thank you, Benny. The rest of the season for you is Jason this week, Ari next week, Mike Haber the week after, or I'm sorry, Mike Sherman. Mike Sherman the week after, and then you get Uncle Barry and Andy the final 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a difficult road, but I don't think it's one that's as hard as some of the others that come down. For me, it's Bobby this week, James Santangelo next week, Jason in week 20, Ari in 21, and Mike Sherman in week 22. I would love to trade schedules with you.
Yeah, no, I think I'm in a slightly better position.
Mm-hmm.
But again, in the last couple of weeks, our teams might be totally different because we're trying to get certain stats, and all of a sudden, guys that were on our team, we have to let go of them by that point. So we don't know what it's going to be with 2 weeks to go. But as of right now, I think they're both pretty rough schedules, but I'll take the ending.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump over to the next matchup here. It's going to be Mike Haber, Jordan with dinner, taking on Chris Levy's Jose Told a Story. And Chris gets the win here, making things really interesting. He takes down a win 10-8. Close categories this week. Chris won by 2 ticks of the batting average and a walk given up by a pitcher. Mike wins by 1 win. They tied in triples, steals, and saves. For Chris, who won the week on his bench, it'll be 7 for 26. That's a 269 batting average. 5 runs, a double, a homer, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. None of that changes anything. He missed out on a Dan Vogelback day where Cano was 0 for 6 at first base. Cano goes 2 for 4 with a run on his bench on Friday. Kendrick doesn't play in the utility spot. None of this matters because none of the offensive stats that he accumulated on the bench would have changed with these players in. As far as his moves for the week, he added Roberto Perez, Archie Bradley, Clint Frazier, and Tyler Naquin all on the 30th, which was Tuesday. Tyler Naquin gives him a big 0 for 7. Clint Frazier is not currently on the Yankees roster. Archie Bradley is apparently supposed to be the closer in Arizona right now, so that's a pretty big add. And Roberto Perez has been a really, really good catching option in fantasy from the Cleveland Indians this year. He added Keone Kela, who never got into a game for him. He added Nick Whitgren, who didn't get into a game for him. Overall, rather, sort of bland week as far as ad drops are concerned for him. If you don't have anything, I'll move on to Mike's team, which really has
I do have one thing that you didn't mention as far as the close categories. Batting average. Did you take a look at that?
Yeah, it was 2 ticks that Chris won by.
Yeah, that's big because it was all about how Sunday was so damn close, and it really just came down to who was going to have that barely better day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with Levy that day. I was with James Santangelo that Sunday. We were all kind of like just talking about. We knew that we weren't playing each other, so we were just hoping for the best. And this guy, he decided with some of these guys like Mark Canha almost burned him.
Mm-hmm.
Not Mark. Sorry, because that was Mike Haber. He picked Mark Canha, then that burned him.
Yes.
Going in the later game, Jackie Bradley Jr. for Levy's team, that could have burned him. It barely won it for him.
Yeah.
So
and 0 for 3 on Sunday night.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, guys like Robinson Cano, guys like Trevor Story saved him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to win the week as a result. So I just give him a lot of credit for, even though he really did have a pretty disappointing Sunday, he had just enough, because it was 194 from Mike Haber and a 226 from Chris Levy.
Yeah, neither of these guys hit well on Sunday.
Right. So it really could have gone either way. So I don't know if it's like I should tip my cap more to Chris or just say like, man, real tough call from Mike Haber. So I'm sure he wants that Mark Canha move back, but you can't take it back. And unfortunately, as a result, that was the one category that I thought like it could go either way, and this is going to make a huge difference. Like this could be like the difference of Chris Levy making the playoffs or not later. So that's why I really wanted to talk about it, because there was just like a lot going on how close batting average was going into Sunday, and the result of both teams kind of laying an egg, but just enough from Levy to go forward with that stat and win the week.
Yeah. You look at Sunday and you see the terrible batting averages, and, it's a case of, if I'm Mike Haber, I have to put faith in Mookie Betts to get me that batting average.
Yeah.
And he goes 1 for 4, and Jackie Bradley goes 0 for 3. If Bradley gets another at bat and strikes out for the 4th time, which is not unreasonable considering he went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts that day, then we're talking about a different matchup. We're talking about probably a 9-9 tie at that point. But we'll jump over to Mike's team. He went 10 for 46 on the bench. That's a 217 batting average. 3 runs, a double, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and 14 strikeouts. The only thing that really sticks out, Chris Davis went 3 for 4 with a double, a homer, and an RBI on his bench. And Eugenio Suarez was 1 for 3 at his utility spot. Chris Davis, a guy that I know Benjamin Aloysius Nisman has had on his team many years in the past, and this year he did not get his hands on him. I find it surprising that Chris Davis is kind of having a bad season this year. Do we think the two are related? Absolutely not, but it's just interesting.
Yeah, I guess so. It was funny because when I drafted him, it was Mike Haber that texted me and said, sorry, I took Chris Davis this year.
Mm-hmm.
I said, whatever.
Yeah, he took him in the 3rd round, too.
Right, and you know what? He actually had a really good first couple of days, I think. And I think I was thinking about when I was playing against Bobby, if I had Chris Davis and I had drafted him, I would have beat Bobby. But going forward, I don't know what could have happened. So he's also been hit with the injury bug a little bit. So, yeah, I guess it kind of worked out that I didn't draft him, but it's just funny that you relate us with him.
Yeah. Moves for him this week, nothing to really write home about. He picked up J.D. Davis and then dropped him after 1 game. He picked up that kid that Detroit got in the Shane Green trade, Travis Demerite. But the big thing that I want to point out is the Adrian. You mentioned Adrian Hauser earlier, calling him an 80s movie villain. Well, he was an 80s movie villain for Mike Haber this week. He picked him up and streamed him 5 innings, the loss, 2 homers, the walk. The one walk that cost him the category this week. 5 strikeouts, a 7.20 ERA, and a 2 whip. He doesn't start him there. He ends up, looks like, tying Chris for walks given up by a pitcher. We're talking about a 10-9 matchup. You know, it's just small. When we're coming down this close and these teams are this close, it's little moves like that could be the difference. He did also pick up Mark Canha, like you talked about. Did end up dropping Mitch Haniger. I don't know if that guy's season is done after the exploded testicle, but you know he probably really needs the roster crunch at this point. You know, losing Aaron Hicks.
I can certainly understand if Haniger needs to take the year off. That's a good reason.
Absolutely, I would understand that as well. Key players this week for these guys. We'll start with Chris, who won the week. You know, you hit on it earlier. It was Trevor Story. I'm still on Sunday. 1 second. Trevor Story for Chris. He hit 270.
6 runs. Go ahead. 273, a 385 on base percentage, 6 runs, a double, a triple, 3 dingers, 5 stakes, a stolen base, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, and an error.
Yeah. Strong week from Trevor Story. And you know what?
The only error that actually Chris gave up all week, unbelievable.
Wow. And he wins it going away 5-1 in that category. The next one we'll highlight is Jose Altuve, the other half of his namesake on this team. 375 average, 464 on base, 7 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And finally, Robinson Cano, though he I believe he's done for the year, man. Following
at
that,
least our fantasy year, I think he's done.
At the very least, you know. But he was really starting to heat up, and this would have made for an interesting stretch run here for Chris with Robinson Cano hitting like he's supposed to. He hit 4.
Do you personally think that Cano was going to continue that, or did you think it was a flash in the pan? All I saw was a lazy player that had a slower bat, that couldn't run, that couldn't field the same way, that would kick it around, that wasn't fast at all, that wasn't hitting the ball that hard anymore. I'm sorry. I realize everyone can get high, and I realize there is a chance that he could have come down the stretch, but nothing gave me any kind of indication that this was the Cano that we've seen back, before 2016, 2000, and those were good years too. But you know what I'm saying, those years on the Yankees, the great batting average, the amazing glove. I'm sorry, I just needed to ask.
No, by all means, rant about Robbie Cano. I mean, he's been an absolute disappointment since he's come over to Queens. I think if this were an AL team, he would be the DH, and I don't think we'd be talking as much about his range and his speed. He'd be much more of in the vein of a Nelson Cruz, And if he could hit like Nelson Cruz, I'm not saying hit.
I don't care if he's not fast. I care that he doesn't even run hard.
He's never ran hard.
That's fine if you're batting 280 even, not if you're batting, something that 200 or whatever he was for a good amount of time.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with you that he doesn't hustle. He's never hustled. He was Manny Machado before Manny Machado was him.
Not hustle if you're gonna bat like a loser. If he was gonna bat even 270, and you're saying, you know what, it's a long season, I understand, but there have been plenty of balls on the ground that if he's running hard and the fielder kicks it around, he would have been safe, and there's a rally in place.
Mm-hmm. I don't disagree with you. He's been an abject disappointment this year, and there's nothing that you're not going to make Robinson Cano at 35 or 36 hustle. It's just not going to happen.
No, I understand. It's just more about that you can at least understand the lack of hustle if you're going to be playing even close to your baseball card, and it's fine if you don't. But give us something.
Yeah.
I understand it was a nice little streak, but I don't think this is a brutal loss for Chris Levy, and I do not think it's a brutal loss for the Mets, personally. I think this opens an opportunity. I think if there's a chance that Dominic Smith can come back, I think it gives him more at-bats and an opportunity. At this point, I realize he didn't light the world on fire. He had a couple of good games, but I realized he didn't light the world on fire when he came into his own to try and play regularly. But there's plenty of time for this kid. I'm okay with him getting more at-bats. J.D. Davis, we know what he can do a little bit more now. He's turning into, obviously the best pickup that Brody had for the offseason. But he's turning into a guy that you have to play every day right now. So, again, in my opinion, not a tough loss for Levy, and I do not think it's a tough loss for the Metropolitans.
I disagree that it's not a big loss for Levy, and here's why. With Robinson Cano going down, and as hot as he was playing, he was he should have been the starting first baseman every day for him at this point. Now he's got to rely on Dan Vogelbach, who's hitting .229 on the season. He hit .067 for the week with a 176 on base. That is going to hurt, and it's going.
But it doesn't have to be that guy. He doesn't have to play him every day. I mean, this guy Osuna for the Pirates. He's a highly touted prospect, and he's got a couple of position eligibilities, a nice player to have. But he's batting .316 on the season. There's enough guys in free agency that I do not think Cano needed to be his everyday first baseman. I don't think Vogelbach does either.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think Chris is waiting to see the full diagnosis and see what's going on before he ends up dropping Cano for the season. In any event, he hit .412 for the week with a .444 on base, 6 runs, 4 doubles, a homer, 4 RBIs, a walk, and a strikeout. Absolutely amazing week from Cano.
Good ending to a season.
Sure, and it's something to build off going into next year, though he's another year older and another year slower and another year, another year without the DH in the NL.
Another year of $30 million or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. Pitching-wise for Chris, Lucas Giolito gave him 7 innings, 9 strikeouts, and a 1.29 ERA with a 0.86 WHIP. The start came against the Mets, of course it did. He does not get a decision, and the team ends up losing because the bullpen blows it for him. But because the Mets are ridiculously hot right now. But that is as awesome a start as you can expect from a guy that you got off the waiver wire. He's really been the pickup of the year, by Chris, and has helped anchor this staff behind Steven Strasburg. The next one I'll highlight is Jordan Yamamoto, 6 innings. I'm not going to highlight the fact that he gave up 4 earned runs, which is a 6 ERA. The 1.17 WHIP is helpful, but the 8 strikeouts is big. Chris did not pitch well. He pitched to an ERA north of 5. But he dominated strikeouts and still won walks by 1. So I'm looking for guys with high strikeout rates and low walk rates. Yamamoto fits that. 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, no walks. And finally, Alex Wood. This is a guy who's bounced around a bunch of teams while he was hurt. Everybody's just sort of clamoring for this guy to show back up. Okay, 6 2/3, the win. 2 homers, you don't like that. But 1 walk and 5 strikeouts with a 2.70 ERA, 0.75 WHIP. Like I said, his pitching staff did not do well. He did not win relief appearances. They tied in saves. He gave up 17 homers, and still he gave up more home runs than walks this week. Bizarre. To Mike's team, I'm going to highlight Eugenio Suarez. Suarez hit .375 with a .500 on base, 3 runs, a homer, 2 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts. He won on base percentage and he won walks. Those were the only 2 offensive categories that Mike won this week, so that is why I highlight Suarez. Yordan Alvarez, his namesake here on his team, .381 batting average, .462 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 5 RBIs, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Another guy who got on base a ton and got a ton of walks. Finally, Edwin Encarnacion, before he goes down with his broken wrist, That's another killer. 500 average, 647 on base percentage, 3 runs, a double, 3 RBIs, 4 walks, and 2 strikeouts. I see that he went out and got Jesus Aguilar to replace him. I really like that move for Mike with Aguilar going to Tampa. You know, I could see Aguilar having a month where he's back to what he was last year, or even 75% of it. Even if he's 75% of what he was last year, it's huge for Mike losing Edwin Encarnacion the way he did now.
I don't know what the situation that the Tampa Bay Rays plan, what Kevin Cash plans to do for Aguilar, but this guy hasn't been too great against right hand. It might be just a situation where he's only going to hit against left-handed pitching, or coming off the bench against a left-handed specialist. So I don't know what Cash's plan is there. A good pickup from Mike Haber. Obviously, he's already had a couple of dingers for the Rays, so we'll see what happens with him and what the plan is in store. But I could see Mike Haber actually having to go and fish someone else out of free agency for first base.
Well, he also has Jock Peterson, who's first base eligible. So
that's perfect. Exactly.
You can probably play the matchups with those two. I think for Aguilar going forward, him specifically, I think he's just going to be a power bat in the middle of that lineup that can DH for them because they've still got Nate Lowe. They've still got Ji-Man Choi that they like. If they utilize those two guys at first base and throw Aguilar in there when they need him to play first base, but they primarily just have him focus on the bat, that could work for him.
It could, especially it's like, okay, if Jock Peterson is only going to basically play against righties, which is kind of what Roberts has been doing. I don't know if he's changed that tone, but I know he was certainly doing it for the first half of the season, basically. Right. And then Aguilar against lefties. So if that's happening on the same day, it's just going to work itself out that one guy isn't starting or one guy is.
Yeah.
So he's got that kind of circumstance where it's a platoon situation that could really work. It's the only challenge is if they're both playing on the same day or they're both not playing on the same day, but that might be pretty rare.
Yeah. We'll jump to Mike's pitchers here. We're going to highlight Will Smith again, 2 relief appearances, a save, 2 clean innings, 4 strikeouts, a 1 whip. I'm going to highlight Aaron Nola. 7 innings, a win, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, and 0.71 whip. And Jack Flaherty, 7 innings, a win, 9 strikeouts, 2 walks, no earned runs, and an 0.43 whip. That is not a slight against Mike Soroka, who had 7 innings and 1 earned. Madison Bumgarner was bad. Mike's pitching came to play. He got his minimum and, another 9 above it. He won wins, he won losses, he won ERA, he won whip, he won relief appearances, and he won homers going away.
Just great managing. To take a loss like 10-8 and still manage like that is just so damn impressive. And I got to be honest, he was almost like manager of the week 3 weeks in a row. So he can lose and still look really damn impressive. This guy is going to the playoffs. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah. No, he'll be there. He'll be there like he is most seasons. He's been in this league for a long, long time. He's definitely
2 years only, and he's been there since 2008. Missed it twice.
Really? He's only been to the playoffs twice?
No, he's only missed it.
Oh, he's only missed it twice. I was going to say, I feel like he's there almost every year.
No. He missed in 2007. Excuse me. He missed in 2008, his first year, and he missed it in 2017.
Okay.
And that was it.
Wow. No, he's going to be a hard out. It's another guy who's... Look, this year, if we could just take a moment before we move on to the next matchup. If you look at what we've got as far as managers are concerned in these 10 teams, 6 of these guys are going to make it. 4 of these guys' hearts are going to be broken. It's you, it's me, it's Mike Sherman, all former champions. It's Jason, a perennial, Jason never made the playoffs.
Never made the playoffs.
This is
been around since 2004.
He's the wild card here, along with James McCloskey. Those two
And Jimmy Dunlap.
and Jimmy Dunlap. You've got three former champions, 3 guys who've never made the playoffs, 4 if you count Bobby. So
yeah,
that's
you gotta count.
gotta count Bobby. So that's 4 guys who've never made the playoffs, 3 former champions, and then you're left with Ari,
who's in the finals a couple of times recently. 2014, 2016.
Mike Haber, a very experienced manager.
Former champion 2012.
And who's the one I'm missing? Oh, he's a former champion, so that's 4 former champions.
4 former champions in there, absolutely.
4 former champions, 4 guys who've never made the playoffs.
And
Ari Nisman.
Ari's made the playoffs 7 out of 8 years, something like that.
And who's the one I'm missing? Is it Chris Levy?
He's been around since 2014, never made the playoffs.
So we've got 5 guys who've never made the playoffs and 5 incredibly experienced managers, 4 former champions.
We are definitely going to have at least 2 guys that have never made the playoffs in this thing. I'm pretty sure.
There's no way.
Which is awesome. It's awesome for our league, man. It's just the competition with us top 10. Really, with 5 weeks to go, anything is possible. Just awesome hard work. I'm glad you took a moment to just say, because we really should just put we've been blown away by all the competition, the hard work, and the energy put into every single matchup to try to beat even the spoilers doing what they had to do.
Oh my God! We haven't even hit on those yet.
Yeah, we haven't. So just Chris Levy, very important time to respond to an 18-0 loss that he took in week 2, to respond and say, this is important to me. I do not want to lose. He said this is one of the most important weeks for him because he did not want to lose again to the guy that beat him 18-0 and set that record. So great job by Levy. You can argue, one of the best managers of the week just because of the hard work put in. And you got to just tip your cap, man. A great matchup from both of these guys. Very impressive, and we'll see what happens going forward. Yeah.
Mathematically, Ben, there is a way that only one person who never made the playoffs makes the playoffs this year. Now, that would take a ridiculous miracle, right? This would be you, me, Mike Haber, and
Ari and Mike Sherman
all getting into the playoffs.
It's possible.
It's possible, but it's not likely. If Mike Sherman and Ari make the playoffs, I think I'm out. I feel like I would be the one to fall out.
Yeah, especially because we're both playing Ari and Michael in our schedule.
Yeah.
I don't think it might not be possible.
Yeah. So I feel like you're right. There's going to be at least 2 guys who've never made the playoffs in.
Yes.
I would say as many as 4.
4. Yeah.
It could be as many as 4, but yeah. We shall see where we end up here. Let's move to the next matchup, and ironically, it's a guy who is a perennial playoff contender and a guy who's never made the playoffs. It's Jimmy Dunlap facing off against Ari Nisman. And Ari, this is the hottest team in the league right now.
No doubt.
Without question, the hottest team in the league right now. He's now on a 4-game winning streak. 16-4 over James McCloskey, 13-8 over Josh Haber, 15-6 over Frank Bucco, and now puts a 14-6 whooping on Jimmy Dunlap. He's making his push, and here he comes. It's going to be interesting to see if he can pull this off. This is a guy who was sitting in last place, 6-8 weeks ago? It wasn't that long ago. Ari wins by a double, 2 errors, a complete game, and a save. Jimmy wins by 5 ticks on the ERA and 6 ticks on the whip. They tied in triples and wins. For Ari this week, he went 12 for 51. That's a .235 batting average. That is the best batting average on his bench in about 2 months. He had 5 runs, 4 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 6 walks, 12 strikeouts, and 2 errors. The 2 errors...
Just the walks and the errors.
Yeah.
The errors, the 2 go ahead. Two
errors. The 2 errors would have tied the category. So to have those on the bench is huge. The walks, he would have...
Unfortunate.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But I don't necessarily see where, he would have gotten.
He might have lost a double in the process, and he only won doubles by one. He only won he tied triple. So
he would have needed to find.
He might have sacrificed another category.
He would have needed to find 4 of those 6, and it would be really hard to find. Shohei Ohtani had one of them on Tuesday. He went 3 for 4 with a run, an RBI, and a steal on the bench. But Arenado and Vlad Guerrero had huge games. And we know the dynamic of this team. You can't play all 3 of those guys. So somebody's got to sit. On Saturday, Verdugo goes 2 for 3 with a double on his bench. And Ian Desmond is 1 for 4 in left field. His entire team hits .588 that day. And he gets the fucking complete game from Buehler that day.
It's incredible. With his offense, and the Buehler was just icing on the cake after everything. And there was some brilliant managing and hard work that we'll get into with what Ari had to do with his pitching in the last couple of days. But just the fact that through 50 runs, 39 RBIs, but the 388 average, and my God, a 443 on base percentage, not fair. There's really just absolutely nothing you could do. You could try and catch him in doubles with your 20. He goes one more with 21. Tune of 14 home runs, really tough to beat it when you're batting 2 home runs per day on average. There is just too much from his offense for any team to match up with. The most important time, Ari does it against the guy that he's chasing, a rookie that's in the race, in Jimmy Dunlap. This is just an unbelievable precedent set by my brother.
Absolutely. His moves this week are really indicative of how well he managed, by the way. He picks up Jose Iglesias on Monday. All that guy does is hit a fucking grand slam for him. He picks up Elias Diaz for Dylan Covey, who he didn't play last Sunday when we highlighted that against the matchup with Frank. That guy goes 1 for 4 with a double. He picks up Sam Travis, who goes 1 for 4. Pitching-wise, he didn't do as well. He did start Kevin Gausman, who had a terrible start. He picked up Tyler Alexander, who had a bad start. And I don't know if you've talked to your brother about him hanging on to Dellin Betances for 4 months. But,
oh my God! Oh no, I definitely did at some point, and I mean, for him and Robertson, as long as they stayed on the team, if that was flipped with some relief appearances, I think Ari could have even been in a better position than he is now. Personally, I think he really wasted some opportunities there. His offense, he's always had a great offense, and I think we've mentioned that many times. It was really just about the fact that he had a deep bench. There's opportunities for him to be leaving stats on the bench. That'll be the thing that makes him or breaks him for the rest of the season. But in this case, I think all these bad starts was all an attempt to just try to win innings pitched, to try to win strikeouts. He somehow stayed underneath with home runs. He only gave up 10 home runs in 80 innings. It's not terrible. It's not great.
That's one. No, that's one a game. That's one every 8 innings. That's one a game.
All right. I mean, try to avoid giving up home runs at any cost.
Of course.
But you're right. Over that percentage, it's pretty good. And he stays underneath for Jimmy, who had 13 home runs given up. So I realize there's some bad streams, and at the end of the day, we'd say, wow, one less bad stream, and you win ERA.
Absolutely, and whip,
and very possibly whip, because there's a couple of pitchers amongst them that gave up a lot of hits.
Yeah, if he doesn't start Kevin Gausman again, that's a 9.64 ERA. That certainly drops
definitely wins ERA. Wins ERA.
And a 2.14 whip that definitely drops it to at least 5 ticks. We're not talking about like a full run here. We're talking
that's fair.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair, Joe.
Yeah. For Jimmy, he went. This is another fantastic line here on the bench. He went 3 for 37. That's an .082 batting average.
Very impressive.
Very. However,
it doesn't matter. It hardly matters.
Yes. However, there's one thing he could have done better. He had 2 runs, a double, an RBI, a steal, a walk, and 12 strikeouts on his bench. The double.
Well, where could it have gone?
So the double was Scott Kingery on Sunday. He was playing in Arizona, went 2 for 5 with a double, a homer, and a run scored. Max Kepler. Now, I know you're not going to bench Max Kepler and his 31 homers. He went 1 for 4 with a... he went 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. So he loses 1 walk, which he still wins,
right?
And the double plays. If you don't want to do it there, maybe you bench Tim Anderson? No, I have it. Here it is. It's David Fletcher. It's David Fletcher against Cleveland on Sunday.
Where's that game?
That is the Shane Bieber complete game. That game is
LA?
That game is in Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
You know, Fletcher's in the lineup in left field. Kingery is at home against Chicago. And Kingery goes 2 for 4 with the homer and the double. Fletcher 0 for 3 against Bieber's complete game. There's your missed double.
Yeah, I guess it could have gone in there, but it's just tough. The guy had 20 doubles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It should have beaten anyone.
Absolutely. And then but there you're talking 13-6. And
right.
When in a place where every game matters, he's not. He's tied right now in a dead heat with Jason. If he gets that half a game, he's now 8.5. He's in 4th, and that half a game could be incredibly huge down the stretch.
Sure, we can look at that, or we can look at Ari, throwing out Gausman out there, and that's the difference. And it could have been 16-4, instead.
Absolutely.
It could be a whole different story. So, both of these guys, they tread water. They did, I think, exactly what needed to be done just to turn the page off the schedule and go to the next round.
Absolutely. Let's jump to key players this week. For Ari, it was Vlad Guerrero Jr. I think this might be the first time, or maybe the second time, I've said his name all season in this part of the podcast. For the week, Vlad Guerrero, since the All-Star break, he's been absolutely killing the ball. This week, 500 average, 536 on base percentage, 5 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Ian Desmond had a great week for him as well. Now, all 7 of the Rockies games were at home this week. So once again, the Rockies players come to play and come to put up stats. Ian Desmond, 438 average, 500 on base, a run, 3 doubles, a triple, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and a strikeout. I highlight him because of the triple and because of the doubles. Ari tied triples and won doubles by 1.
How about the fact that Vlad Guerrero has 11 RBIs? Did you happen to notice how many RBIs Ari won by?
It was exactly 11.
Right.
Finally, we're going to hit Nolan Arenado. 360 batting average, 385 on base, 6 runs, a double, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. That doesn't include the 9 runs scored from Brian Reynolds this week with his 409 average and his 519 on base. It doesn't include Rougned Odor, 357, 471 on base. It does not include Ahmed Rosario's 423, 444 on base. Look, this team hit 388 and had a 443 on base. Everybody fucking hit this week for Ari. That's basically the way you have to look at it. Pitching-wise for him, we're going to highlight the Walker Buehler complete game shutout. I'm sorry, it's not a complete game shutout. It's just a complete game. 9 innings, 1 solo home run, 15 strikeouts. The solo home run comes at the hand of Manny Margot, who I'm going to hit on later because somebody picked him up and it was huge for him. But yeah, it's everything you could ask for out of your ace. Sergio Romo, we touched on him last week when Frank was on about him picking up saves for the Twins, and here he is picking up a save for Ari. 4 clean relief appearances, 4 1/3, a save, 4 strikeouts, and 0.23 whip. This guy's going to be big for Ari coming down the stretch here, especially losing Craig Kimbrell. And finally, I will highlight Jeff Samardzija. 6 innings, a win, 5 strikeouts, a walk, no earned, and 0.67 WHIP. Ari had some diamonds in the rough there for his pitching staff, but he does pitch to 7 losses, an ERA near 5. It's just kind of more of the same from Ari all season. He doesn't get a great week from Dallas Keuchel. He pitches to a 5.11 ERA this week. Cashner gives him a bad start. DeSclafani's not great. And if you add in the Gausman stream, the Alexander stream, the Zimmerman stream, and the Pannone stream, it just doesn't equate to a good situation. He might be better off living by the Ben Nisman strategy of let me get my 37 and go from there.
Right. I'll give him credit though. As a result, there was some stats won from the work that was done.
Sure.
Some things blew up in his face, but at the end of the day, I'll give him some credit on that. Right now, as far as his wins losses, his total is 53 and 54.
Wow.
As far as with his pitching, actually that number kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
Personally, I thought it would be a little bit under 500. But you take that at this point.
Yeah.
A 131 WHIP, it's certainly not great, but it can compete. If you play it out against teams when they're going to be doing the same thing and streaming and having starters blow up in your face, a lot like what I did this week.
Sure.
So
the part that won't play though is his season 4.80 ERA.
Yeah, 4.80 ERA.
Yeah.
That's just not going to hold up unless you're kind of playing the 37 inning penny pinch move.
Right. And when he's going up, what has he got the rest of the way here? He's got Nick this week, and then it's you, me, and Bobby, and then Jason to finish out the season. It's 4 playoff teams ahead of him to finish out the season in the next 5 weeks. All 4 of these teams are gonna, kind of try to. At least I know I will try to fight. Let him pitch to his 5 ERA. If I have to sacrifice innings because of it, let him pitch to his 5 ERA. He's gonna have to come down in order to compete with me. That's at least what I'm going to do. I'm sure you're going to do something similar.
Probably. Yeah. We're going to have to see what happens. Everything changes once someone makes a play for a certain starter on a Monday or a Tuesday, and then it changes their entire strategy. So we're going to have to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump over to key players for Jimmy this week. We're going to highlight Max Kepler. I talked about him earlier. You don't bench the guy with 31 homers. Well, he hit .333 with a 41 on-base percentage, 7 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 6 walks, 4 strikeouts. I highlight him not because of the 7 runs that led the team, not because of the 3 doubles that led the team, but because of the 6 walks that led the team. And he won, the only offensive category he won was walks. We're going to highlight Alex Bregman, his first round pick. .391 average, .462 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Obviously, the triple is what plays here because he tied that category. And finally, we're going to highlight Will Smith, the catcher, not Will Smith, the pitcher. .278 average, .316 on base, 4 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. He led the team in RBIs. And, for a team that lost Gary Sanchez, to find this kid and have him lead the team in RBIs the following week is huge.
Huge, especially because right now, Jimmy is 4th in our entire league in RBIs, 591. He only trails Ari with 594, James, and Nick. And he's also tied in the league lead in home runs with 204. So Jimmy is getting his knocks. So, at this point, when you see a guy that's so powerful offensively and has been doing it all season,
to walk into Ari's juggernaut, we're just talking about a hot team that can't be stopped right now. And maybe this is the week it finally stops, but right now, who's stopping Ari?
Apparently, it's going to be Nick Homan's turn this week, and we'll see what happens there.
Not liking it.
It looks like in order to keep Ari out, it's going to come down to one of those four of you, me, Bobby, and Jason to keep him out.
Yeah, Ari controls his. I tell you, if he wins out, if Ari wins out, it looks pretty good because it means a couple of us would have to lose also.
Exactly.
But he'd have to double up somebody, and he almost definitely can't lose to a team that's going to be in fifth place. That he could have flipped, and all of a sudden they make a separation in those last couple weeks.
Exactly.
That's what it's going to come down to.
Exactly. Let's highlight Jimmy's pitchers. First, we're going to hit Liam Hendriks. This guy's been a godsend for the Oakland A's. 3 1/3 this week, 3 relief appearances, 2 saves. Did give up a homer, but 8 strikeouts in 3 1/3. 2.70 ERA, 0.60 WHIP. I highlight him because of the relief appearances, obviously. Second, we're going to hit on Nick Goody, a reliever for Cleveland. 3 relief appearances, 2 1/3, all clean, an 0.86 ERA, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Again, Jimmy 1 ERA and WHIP, and when it's that tight, you have to look at these relievers and see how many of them threw clean innings. Because one bad inning can bump that up a tick or two here or there, and before you know it, you're losing by 5 instead of winning by 5 in ERA.
Yeah, you lose the ERA. That's it,
Yep. Finally, I will hit on a starter. It's Lance Lynn. He's been great for him all season. 7 innings, a win, 10 strikeouts, 1 earned, 2 walks. That's a 1.29 ERA and 0.86 WHIP. He did stream Ivan Nova. 5 innings, no decision, 4 strikeouts, a 1.80 ERA, a 1.40 WHIP. You don't like the 1.40 WHIP for a game like that. I would much prefer to see that like a 1.1, 1.2, especially when WHIP is that close. But at the end of the day, he won WHIP despite Ivan Nova trying to spoil it for him. Anything else from this matchup? I feel like we hit on everything, although
we hit on a lot. Jimmy is 78 and 80 as far as wins losses with his pitching. A 4.08 ERA. That's not that's winnable.
That'll play.
You know what I mean?
That'll play.
I feel like Jimmy is one of these teams right now that's pretty balanced. Of course, maybe if he had another closer, he'd probably feel a little bit better. But right now, a very, very balanced team, and Ari just too much of a desperate team trying to climb the mountain. So that's what Jimmy walked into. Still an amazing team, an amazing rookie season coming from. He does not play like a rookie, man. This guy plays like he's been playing with us since all these years that we were talking about earlier in our matchup. This guy was born to play fantasy baseball. He's doing an unbelievable job. He just walked in too much of a desperate team trying to pull everything off and make a miraculous comeback. We've been talking about the Ari possible comeback for a month now. He seems to be showing us that anything is possible, and it definitely is. So I really hope he can continue it going against Nick, and going forward, it's just great for the league what's going on. Yeah,
and you know what? Jimmy has the opportunity to put the nail in a coffin this week. He gets Mike Sherman. If Mike Sherman doesn't get a win here against Jimmy, it could spell the end of his season.
Absolutely.
And if, on the other side of that coin, if Mike puts up a good win against Jimmy, this could knock him out of the top 6.
Yeah, and make him sweat for the last 4 weeks.
Exactly.
Sure.
He's right on the cusp. He's 9 back of first, but he's only 3.5 up of Bobby in 7th. So one bad move, one bad week could dump him right out of the playoff picture. After that, he gets Uncle Barry. He then gets Andy. He then gets Chris Levy and Mike Haber to finish out the season. So a couple of decent weeks in there against bottom feeder teams that are going to try to spoil, but then he gets 2 more teams in the hunt to finish out his season. So he's another team that if he gets in, he's going to have to earn it. We will move on to the next matchup here. It's going to be Stanton Room only James McCloskey, who took on Andy Solar Greco Goodrum Fundies. James does get a 12-9 win here. It's another case of a playoff team just tearing that week off the calendar and moving on, because this was a huge opportunity for Andy to spoil, and it did not happen. James led just about the entire way, and by a comfortable margin. He did give up a couple of categories over the weekend. It went from 13-7 on Friday to 12-9 on after Sunday, but you'll take that. You will take a win every week, especially when you're up against a team that can spoil. James won by 3 runs, a home run, 2 steals, a walk, 2 strikeouts, and 2 relief appearances. Andy wins by a triple, 2 errors, a save, and less than 1 point in WHIP. This was an incredibly close matchup with all of those stats up for grabs. They did not tie in anything, and it was really, really fun to watch this one as well. James's moves this week. He picked up Miguel Cabrera on Monday, and I know somewhere inside you, Benny, it hurt to see him go to another contending team.
No doubt.
Especially when he went 2 for 4 with a homer and 3 RBIs that day.
On the first day.
On the first day of the matchup. Now, James did end up dropping him back to the waiver wire. And again, when you activate CJ Cron and you've got Cody Bellinger, maybe Miguel Cabrera doesn't fit onto that roster. I get it. But to pick him up and get that kind of production certainly is huge for the matchup. Is huge that that he comes away from another playoff contending team like yours, and he uses it to keep a spoiler at bay.
Right, and winning the category by 1. He won home runs 12 to 11.
Exactly.
He needed every one of them, so you can just point right at that pickup to Miguel Cabrera to set him forward in that step. So for that, I give him a lot of credit. We're going to get into a major benching of Zach Wheeler pretty soon. So
yeah.
we need to talk about it, because it made it changed so much of what's going to happen throughout the rest of the week. So we'll see.
Let me finish up with James' team, and then we'll jump to the Zach Wheeler benching. The rest of the week for him, for the first part of the season, James was huge streaming pitchers. This week, he was huge streaming hitters. Michael Chavis, 2 for 4 with a solo homer and a strikeout. We talked about Miguel Cabrera. Cameron Maybin, though he went 1 for 7, got him a double. And the final one is on Sunday. He picked up Manny Margot. And Manny Margot went 1 for 4 with a homer. And the homer there breaks that tie that existed from all of the ones that he streamed earlier in the week. He gets the final homer off of Kenta Maeda in LA to win that category. Fantastic week from James streaming these hitters. He did how we talked about this morning. He says, however, his touch in streaming pitchers has fallen off quite a bit. This week it was Adrian Sampson, and I was looking at Adrian Sampson this week, and I thought that might be a nice stream. 4 2/3, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts, a 7.71 ERA, a 2.36 WHIP. It was not. It was ugly. He also loses Jameson Taillon now for the season. He's gone, and he was hoping that he would come back along with Kluber and bolster that rotation. As well, he loses Hyun-Jin Ryu for 10 days. This is going to be an interesting run for James this week, and I'm interested to see how he reacts. Losing his top pitcher, losing one of the guys he was stashing.
Right.
It's gonna be a very interesting week for him.
You started well offensively. You've got 11 RBIs or something already to start the week. So as far as the offense, that's already come to play on Monday. This is a really dangerous offensive team. We've said in the past, and then all of a sudden he has this unbelievable week of streaming hitters, and it's not going to always happen like this. I mean, there's been times where you and I would just go on a streak and be like, every guy you pick up is hitting counting stats for you.
Yeah.
At some point, you start thinking they start going 0 for 4, 1 for 5. that starts to get, so you can only, just like you can only stream starters and get hot for a while, same goes with those hitters. I really think there's a feel for it, and that can definitely change in a hurry. So he's got to be careful with how he uses his 13 moves this week, because he's going to need every one of them.
Well, he has used a move today, and it's for a pitcher. He is going to be he's going to be streaming Jacob Junis in Boston. That'll be one we highlight next week.
Yes.
On his bench this week, he went 5 for 12. That's a .417 batting average with 2 runs, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, and 4 strikeouts all on the bench. The 2 homers, one was on Sunday. I will momentarily take a look. It was Michael Chavis, who went, looks like 2 for 3 with a homer. Johnny VR would be the benching there. He went 0 for 4. Was that on Sunday? Yeah, he went 0 for 4 on Sunday. However, he did win the category, so I can't get too upset about it.
Did either of these managers run out of moves this week?
No, James did not. No, neither of them did.
Yeah, I asked because of the Zach Wheeler thing, and how his strikeouts accumulate, and then going forward, how both of these managers play the rest of their moves going forward. It's not possible that Andy wins this thing with no problem, because he puts James in a position to start throwing more guys. He ends up losing ERA. Maybe he loses. Maybe he doesn't win wins. All these things could possibly happen. So,
well, let's jump over to Andy's team, and we can hit on the Wheeler benching. On his bench this week, he went 14 for 40. It's a .350 batting average. He left 6 runs. That would have won him a category.
if there was a place to place him.
Sure. 3 doubles, 2 homers. That would have won him the category, but he would have had to be perfect. 8 RBIs, a walk, 8 strikeouts, and an error. The runs, looks like he had 3 runs on Saturday. Otherwise, he would have had to be perfect.
There had to be an opportunity for him to win batting average and win on-base percentage. Because, my God, to lose 246 to 239 in that batting average, to lose on-base percentage 313 to 304, those are really close categories, and you could just think there might have been something. I mean, if you're telling me that he had an over 300 batting average on the bench,
350.
there had to be opportunities to pull out some 0 for 3s and 0 for 4s here and there.
Yeah. The one that sticks out is on Saturday, Gerard Dyson goes 2 for 6 with a run, a double, and 2 RBIs on the bench. Nico Goodrum is 0 for 4 in center field. And J.D. Davis on Sunday, 2 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs, and a run on the bench. Rafi Devers 0 for 4 at third base. Those two are glaring.
Pivotal.
Yeah, those are glaring spots where you could add some stats there. Even if
you add the home run too, you just average home run. It's a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable matchup. And I gotta say, this is huge for James, because what I say for between the Wheeler that we'll get into more and all these bench and the 300 average on the bench, all these opportunities, this is an escape for James McCloskey. This is, I just got away with one, and I might have just punched my playoff ticket by winning this matchup when I could have very well lost this matchup. This is an unbelievable moment for James McCloskey. In my opinion, this is so huge for him to win this matchup because of how it looked and the possibility of the way he could have lost it. This is enormous. This is enormous to come out on top. And I could very well say that this might be him going to the playoffs for the first time. He's been with us since 2014, so this is it. This is huge.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, the rest of his schedule, we've talked about it in the past, is very favorable. He gets Chris Levy this week, Mike Haber next week, and then it's James Santangelo, Josh Haber, and Frank Bucco. He is in the driver's seat here.
Yeah.
So, moves that Andy made this week. He picked up that kid Dustin May that they're calling Ginger Guard. He went 5 2/3, 3 strikeouts. It was a decent enough start. I don't know if the kid's going to get another one, but we'll see. The rest was all offense except for Drew Pomeranz, who's a reliever now. So when you talk about benching Zach Wheeler and you talk about him not chasing wins, not chasing strikeouts, this is really the key here because he only streamed one guy. He streams a guy on Sunday. James didn't. Neither of them really went for strikeouts.
Right.
Now, you want to talk about this Zach Wheeler benching. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
All right, so for starters, at the time, it would have put Andy ahead by wins. It would have put Andy ahead in strikeouts. It would have put Andy ahead in ERA. It would have had him in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
So this happened on Wednesday. And I just think that when you miss out on something like that, you take out the opportunity of you being in the driver's seat for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
So when you throw 7 scoreless innings, and it's just unfortunate, it just happens that Andy didn't check his team the day before, and he got swamped with work that morning, and he didn't know that the Mets had a day game.
Yeah.
He's a diehard Mets fan, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not necessarily in the playoff race, maybe fantasy, it kind of gets sort of in the back burner of your mind a little bit. Not that he's not trying. This guy is definitely trying. But that was just a slight miss that I think really turned the tables, and it just said to me, it's going to take a lot for Andy to now beat James. I feel like that was the opportunity to put the hammer down and to hold them at bay for the next 4 days. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
It turned into an offensive battle. It was a great offensive battle, and it's one that Andy almost won. But to me, if the benching of Wheeler doesn't happen, we are talking about a completely different result.
Yeah, we're talking, if all things remain the same and he plays Wheeler alone, you're talking about a 10-10 tie because he would tie wins and he would flip strikeouts.
Right, but this is on Wednesday, so a lot more would have happened after that.
Sure. I'm just saying in a vacuum. In a vacuum.
Responded to it.
Yeah, absolutely. He absolutely would have. He would have gone for a win. He would have gone for the strikeouts, I would imagine. I'm just going to take a look real quick on Sunday and see if... Okay, so I take that back that nobody went for it. James did have 2 starters going on Sunday in Sonny Gray, actually 3, in Sonny Gray, Brad Keller, and Chris Paddock, all on Sunday, and that gave him 20 strikeouts just from those 3 starters.
Right, determined to get the strikeouts and a win.
Andy countered with just Patrick Corbin.
Right.
He adds 1 starter there, and the guy gets 3 strikeouts in the outing, and he wins that matchup. So there's something to be said for going for it, especially when you see a guy who's starting 3 high strikeout guy type pitchers.
Right. There was almost no one except for God, I can't even pronounce his last name, but Tovio Livola came out on Sunday as a possible probable starter, and that was the only guy available on Sunday. So if Andy wanted to go for it, so to speak, he would have had to plan a day or 2 ahead, Joe.
Yeah.
And that would have been tough. It just seemed like everyone was kind of locked down on their starters. And we'll get into another matchup later where someone almost missed the minimum. But it was hard to come by the starters. So I will say, like, the going for it, it wasn't necessarily available for Andy, but it's just, I tip my cap to James in doing the same thing and saying, I'm so determined to go for the win, to go for the strikeouts, and he did.
I also want to give credit where it's due. James was on vacation for the vast majority of this week. He was not at home, so this was a whole lot of being on the phone and checking your phone every few hours. So credit to James for getting a win on his vacation.
Credit to both of them.
Sure.
Because I'll say this, because Andy did end up winning WHIP barely. Like that need to go for it, he might lose that category as well.
Sure.
So yeah, like both of these guys, they had busy weeks outside of their fantasy baseball life, and they had a great matchup.
And we still get very entertaining matchup. Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's jump to key players, and it's more of the same from James. It's probably the NL MVP. It's Cody Bellinger this week. .318 average, 400 on base, 6 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. Johnny VR, Sunday notwithstanding, had a great week. 200 average, 286 on base. It's not why I'm highlighting him. 4 runs, a double, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 steals. Single-handedly wins him that category. 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, it's going to be Michael Conforto, who I would like to, after I'm done running down Conforto's numbers here, I'm going to give you a player comparison and tell me which side you'd want. 292 average, 414 on base this week, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. Now, I am going to give you 2 side-by-side players, and I'm not going to tell you who player B is, but I want you to who player A or player B is. I'm going to just run some numbers at you, and you tell me which side you would want as a player on your fantasy team or on your professional team. Are you ready?
Wait, you're going to give me 2 different players and their
current statistics. The current
2019?
statistics, yes. Yes,
And
I
I'm
am.
going to tell you
Which side do you want?
Who I'd rather have
Yes.
on my team.
Yes.
Player A or player B.
Okay. Player A is hitting .258 for the season with a .367 on-base percentage. He has 23 homers, 61 RBIs, 62 runs scored, and 20 doubles. Okay?
Okay.
Player B,
How many walks does he have?
58.
Okay.
Okay? Player B is hitting .249 for the season with a .372 on-base percentage. He has 19 homers, 73 RBIs, 65 runs scored, 30 doubles, and 78 walks.
It sounds pretty obvious that I'd want player B.
Okay. Player B is Bryce Harper. Player A is Michael Conforto. Player B was a first-round pick. Michael Conforto was 7 rounds later.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. They're comparable.
Yes.
Bryce Harper is still a little bit better.
Of course.
But I feel like as of late, Conforto has really turned it on.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has. Pitching-wise for James, we're going to go to Sonny Gray, 12 1/3, a win, 2 homers, 5 walks, 10 strikeouts, a 2.92 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP. Chris Paddock also gave him a good week, 9 1/3, a win, 2 homers, 3 walks, 11 strikeouts, a 6.75 ERA, and a 1.29 WHIP. You don't like to see that, but he ended up winning ERA, so you'll take it. And finally, Brad Keller. It's going to be 14 innings, 2 losses you don't like, 4 homers you don't like, but 1 walk, 12 strikeouts, a 3.86 ERA, and a 1 WHIP. At the end of the day, James won innings, wins, strikeouts, and ERA. So I highlighted guys who fit those categories, and definitely the top 2 innings eaters on his team in Gray and Keller helped him go to this win this week.
Yeah, you got to give the Cincinnati Reds front office a lot of credit for the Sonny Gray move. I mean, the Reds haven't really had a terrific season. I think, at least me, I expected a lot from this team this year. But Sonny Gray is not the reason why they've, I guess, underperformed. Even in their games that they've lost by a run or two, this guy has thrown some real gems for them, and he's been a great find for James as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? Going into next season, Cincinnati is going to have a 1-2-3 punch of Trevor Bauer, Luis Castillo, and Sonny Gray.
And this guy, yeah, it's a great top 3, man.
Yeah.
It's just it's a step in the right direction. They've got good hitters. They got the Great American Small Park. I mean, that's not great for your pitchers, but they're still good arms. They're good young arms, and you got to think that maybe in a year or two, this team is built to win.
Yeah. We'll jump to Andy's team here. Key players for him. Nelson Cruz does it again. 545 average, 615 on base percentage, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts.
Wow.
Without him, again, how bad is this team looking? You know, he's had a 2-week tear here where he's just absolutely been otherworldly. We'll add in Carson Kelly, his catcher, 267 average, 313 on base, 3 runs, 2 homers, 2 RBIs, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. And finally, Willie Calhoun, who's going to be filling in for Joey Gallo for the foreseeable future. 167 average you don't like, 231 on base you hate, but 3 runs, a triple, a homer, and 6 RBIs with a walk and 3 strikeouts. He got the only triple in the matchup, and that won him the category, and the 6 RBIs when Andy won that category by 4. I will give Calhoun credit where it's due. Pitching-wise...
for that, you know, sometimes, like, you think about it, and when I see that in a matchup, and I realize, and you hit it right on the head, because it's just like, you got to look at those things, even though the average is bad. If I kind of liken that to, if you have a baseball player on your team who's batting about 230, 240, whatever it is, but it seems that every single time when he comes up late in the game with runners on, that's when he gets the hit. So he could go 0 for 4, and then in his last at bat, that's when he cracks it. So, like, at the end of the day, if that ties the game or puts the team in the lead because it's late and close, then you don't think the player is as bad when his numbers show he's not really a great player. It's just the timing of the hits. It's just huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Andy's pitching this week. We're going to hit on Raisel Iglesias, somebody you're familiar with. 3 relief appearances, all clean, 3 strikeouts, 2 saves, 3 innings. Once upon a time, we thought this guy might be out as the closer in Cincinnati, and here's this week. So, be interesting to see how it's played going forward. Domingo Germán had a great week as well. 7 innings, a win, 7 strikeouts. Did give up 2 homers, but only a 2.57 ERA and an 0.71 WHIP because he did not walk a batter. That was huge. And finally, it's going to be Alex Young, the young pitcher from Arizona. 6 innings. He did take the loss, but 9 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, and a 1 WHIP with only 3 walks. Fantastic outing from him as well.
Yeah, and alas, the loss didn't really matter because Andy won that category 5-3.
Exactly. You know, the rest of his pitchers did not pitch very well. I mean, he did pitch to an ERA north of 5, almost 5.5. You know, you look at guys like Matt Strahm, you look at Trevor Bauer and Patrick Corbin for the week. You know, if Corbin and Bauer do not pitch well, Andy's not going to compete in ERA or WHIP or things of that nature. Like, he's got a 3-headed monster here in Bauer, Corbin, and Domingo Germán, and to a lesser extent Zach Wheeler as well. It's a nice 1, 2, 3, 4. But man, there's just so much. There's so much fluctuation in these guys' performances. You know, Bauer is a head case. Corbin can be an ace, and he can be a dud. You know, he had a dud performance against Arizona, only 2 starts after going 6 shutout against Colorado. You know, I think the benching of Wheeler certainly would have changed this matchup incredibly.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%.
So,
and especially, you know, it's funny because I look at Andy's numbers in the pitching. I guess it's really more about the hitting head-to-head, but I was actually surprised and impressed that, you know, he's 9-8. That's over 500 with innings. Over 500 with wins, 10-5-2. Losses, he's at 500, 7-7. He's actually 1-0 in complete games, 16 ties there. 8-6 in saves with 3 ties. 4-11 in home runs given up, 6-11 in walks given up, 11-6 in strikeouts, 6-11 in ERA. You don't like to see, but 10-7 in WHIP. So the pitching hasn't necessarily been the reason. Although, you know, I realize not great with the ERA, but again, not necessarily the reason why he's in the position that he's in.
Sure. If you look at totals, he is in the middle of the pack in innings pitched, rather middle of the pack in wins, middle of the pack in losses. He is middle of the pack in saves, middle of the pack in home runs given up, It looks
the
like
ERA
he's...
is not. The ERA is at 4.5. You'd like to be a little bit better.
Yeah. Walks, he's toward the top. Strikeouts, he's middle of the pack toward, like he's just the top end of the middle of the pack. His
Right.
ERA is not going to play. It's a 4.52. You mentioned it. But his WHIP, middle of the pack, 1.28. And
Yeah, you can live with it. You can live with it.
and relief appearances, he's right in the middle. So, you hit on it that he was 500 in a lot of categories pitching-wise, at or near 500, to just over in some categories. And that's kind of indicative of his totals here being kind of just middle of the pack in his
Right
pitching.
in the middle, right. And
Yeah.
it's just not enough to match up with some of these other teams that are having great pitching seasons, I guess.
Right. We hit on James's remaining schedule. Andy, of course, playing spoiler the rest of the way. He does not get a team to spoil over the next 2 weeks. He's going to get Josh Haber this week, Frank Bucco next week. He then gets Jimmy, Nick Homan, who's not spoiling anything for, but the big matchup that he's staring down, I'm sure he's licking his chops for, is that matchup with you in week 22.
Right, so it's Jimmy and me, and that's really just about all he can really do to change somebody's season.
Absolutely. Let's jump over to the next one. This is another incredibly close matchup. We're going to go to Jason Ashby, Witness Protection, who took on Nick Homan, handed the week away. And Jason gets the win here, 11-10. Close categories, Jason wins by an RBI and a walk. Nick wins by 2 triples, 2 homers, 2 steals, and a complete game. They tied in relief appearances. For Jason this week, he went 7 for 41 on his bench. That's a 171 batting average. 5 runs, that would have won him the week. 4 doubles, that would have won him the week. A homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, 15 strikeouts, and an error. The big thing that he left on the bench is going to be Domingo Santana's 1 for 5 with a run, a double, a steal, and 2 strikeouts on the bench. Benintendi was 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts and left. That's really where it boils down to as far as things he missed.
Not terrible. I really don't think he should be beating himself for that, because still, losing by 5 runs is still losing by 5 runs.
He would have had to be perfect. He would have had to be perfect in runs. He would have had to be perfect in doubles.
And he couldn't touch. He didn't have enough to get him in home runs, no matter what.
Nope.
He got him by 1 RBI. He got him by 1 walk, like you said. Average was 252 to 242.
Yep.
There's a decent amount of close categories that Jason should be patting his back for, because honestly, this could have very easily gone the other direction. He probably wanted a more substantial win against a lower end team in our league, but at the end of the day, there's still a good manager that he was facing. He's got DeGrom that he had to deal with this week. There was a lot that he had to overcome here, and he's happy to get away with an 11-10, because that's all he needs right now. He's got 5 weeks to go. He's turning the page off the calendar, as we always say, and this is a guy that's so ready to finally burst that bubble of never, ever getting to the playoffs. This might be it, and this is a big step in the direction. For him to win very close categories like he did was critical, and I'm really proud of this guy right now.
Absolutely. I am as well. Moves for him this week, he picked up Jordan Lyles for a start. 5 innings, a win, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, a 180 ERA, and a 1 WHIP. That's as good as you can possibly want from a streamer, especially a guy who just got traded and was facing his old team, I believe. It was, I just want to make sure that I'm right in saying that. I'm looking at the wrong team. Okay, 5 innings and the win. Yeah, the start was in Pittsburgh, so it was a sort of a revenge game for him. He goes up against his old squad and shuts them down and gets a win. The bullpen tried to blow it for him. It ends up being a 9-7 final, and for a guy who only gave up 1 earned run, you sort of look at your bullpen going, hey guys, you can't be doing that to me here.
No, but the relief appearance is still so useful.
Yeah. The rest of the moves, rather inconsequential. Again, the offensive categories were what they were. We'll jump over to Nick's team. Nick went 12 for 31 on his bench. That's a 387 batting average. 7 runs, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 3 RBIs, which would have flipped that category, 4 walks, which would have done the same, 8 strikeouts, and an error. there's a few things that you look at. Christian Walker, 2 for 3 with a home run on the bench on Tuesday. Puig goes 0 for 4 in right field. And Reyes, I believe, was at utility and did not do well as well. Wade Davis shit the bed this week. He's been ousted as the closer. Randall Grichuk, he picked up on Monday. He was on the bench and went 2 for 4 with a homer and an RBI. And Franmil Reyes was 1 for 4 with a strikeout. Austin Riley, who he traded for, 1 for 3 with a homer on the bench. Franmil Reyes, 0 for 4 in the utility spot. There were chances.
Did Jason use all of his moves this past week?
1, 2, 3, 4. No.
No?
He would have had 4 left on Sunday.
Okay. Maybe he didn't have someone to drop, but I guess the reason I brought it up, and I know we're highlighting Nick's team right now, but
yeah.
I'm just wondering maybe that there's a chance if he had someone to drop to maybe go for that relief appearance, because he only tied it. There's just.
Well, he did. He picked up Chris Martin. He picked up Chris Martin on Sunday. And
right.
dropped Matt Albers in order to pick up Willie Adames the day before. So.
I understand, but Chris Martin didn't come into the game.
Right.
So he went for it, and that was a miss. And so I guess after that, he wasn't ready to drop anyone else. I guess with the 5 pitchers that he threw in there, those were the 5 that he was gung-ho about. Those are the guys that are going to go in. And unfortunately, he only got 2 relief appearances on that day. So, all right, maybe, I don't know. No, because we got Carlos Martinez, right? And Yarborough, he comes out of the pen sometimes, right?
Yes.
So okay, but I
but
don't know what was out
Nick
there
had
for
the opportunity
agency.
to win that. Nick had Ken Giles on the bench, and Ken Giles got into the game on Sunday.
Right. No, Nick had the opportunity. I understand that, but I'm questioning whether Jason had that opportunity. So, Yu Darvish was starting that day, right? So, he didn't have that spot.
Right.
And this Brandon McKay
is a starter.
He's a starter.
Is a legitimate starter.
We knew that he wasn't going to come in that day.
Right.
He could have been on his bench, and he could have been going for that starter that's also a reliever.
Freddie Peralta is a guy that is a reliever.
Well, for whatever reason, I guess maybe Freddie Peralta had already pitched on Saturday, pitched on Friday, and Jason assumed that guy wasn't going to be coming in again because he had too many pitches. He wasn't available for whatever reason.
Yeah, Freddie Peralta Freddie Peralta went 2/3 of an inning against the Cubs on Saturday. He gave up 3 walks, a strikeout, a 27 ERA, and a 7.50 WHIP.
So no question he wouldn't be used the next day. So Jason was on point, and his move was Chris Martin. That was the guy he went for that he was hoping would come in, and it didn't work out. Okay, so I just wanted to give him credit that he went for it, that there wasn't necessarily the space to really go after another one, know?
Yep. Moves as far as Nick is concerned, not a whole lot. There was a wasted move on Monday, but it didn't matter because he didn't max his moves out. We'll jump to key players here, and it's for Jason. I say it every week, and I will continue to say it until the man gets the credit that he's due. And I hate him because he plays for the Nationals. But Anthony Rendon is still the most underrated player in Major League Baseball. 304 average, 370 on-base percentage, 4 runs, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. He did have 2 errors, but the 9 RBIs wins Jason that category. His 304 average certainly plays. His 370 on-base certainly plays. Travis d'Arnaud, a name that sends shivers down the spine of Mets fans because of how well he's playing recently. 400 average, 550 on base percentage this week, 4 runs, a homer, 4 RBIs, 5 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error. The 5 walks are huge because he wins walks by 1. And finally, it's going to be Andrew Benintendi, despite the fact that I said earlier that he went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts or something to that effect. He had 333 with a 355 on base percentage this week. 2 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, a walk, 10 strikeouts. You don't like to see that, especially when he loses strikeouts by 11. But again, a fantastic week. Helped him get on base percentage and average.
Yeah, I want to throw another guy's name, and that's McKay. can, because that's the guy he traded for, and he grabbed a walk as well. And, 2 runs, a double, a home run, and 4 driven in. The walk, the 4 strikeouts with a 375 average and a 412 on base percentage. Also definitely incorporated him winning it. As well as Nick Senzel, a 375 average, 375 on base, 3 doubles, 2 RBIs, 3 strikeouts. But, like you said, just great offense doing its job, Jason doing what he needed to do.
Absolutely. Ryan McMahon has really turned it around, since his slow start early in the season. Again, 7 games in Colorado, you're going to hit. It's just, you're a professional hitter. You're going to hit in Colorado. Pitching-wise for Jason, going to be Carlos Martinez. 1 relief appearance, the save, 3 strikeouts, an inning and a third. I highlight him because he won saves 3-0. And obviously Carlos Martinez was a big part of that. Yu Darvish, we hit on it earlier, did give him a great start. 5 innings. Oh no, he went 11 innings. A win, a loss, 2 homers, 17 big strikeouts, 2.45 ERA, and a 1 WHIP. And finally, Griffin Canning, who's now on the DL, but before he went down, 6 innings, a win, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk, nothing earned, 0.83 WHIP. Huge. Wow. Yeah, huge.
Yeah. I mean, those 2 guys, him and Darvish, to just drop the ERA that much, and 3.61, you take that, and the 122 that beats Nick's 1.30 in WHIP. That's awesome, and he just can tip his cap because Jason had a really good pitching week this week.
Absolutely. We'll hit Nick's offense here. It's going to be DJ LeMahieu again. 400 average, 400 on base, 3 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, and a strikeout. It's going to be Eddie Rosario. 400 average, 364 on base, 3 runs, a double, a homer, 6 RBIs, 2 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Yasiel Puig. It's going to be a 190 average, which you don't like to see, 292 on base percentage. You'd hope that gets better. 2 runs, 2 doubles, 4 RBIs, 3 big steals. That's what I'm highlighting here. 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. The steals were huge. That single-handedly wins him the category, as Jason's whole team only steals 2. Pitching-wise for Nick, we're going to go with Shane Bieber, who did throw the complete game. Where the hell is it? I'm on the wrong team.
Well, I'd say that this matchup was kind of going back and forth a lot of the week, as far as I remember.
It was 11-8, 10-9, 11-9. It ends 11-10. It was a very back and forth matchup. Shane Bieber for Nick. He goes 16 innings, a win, a loss, a complete game, 2 homers, a walk, 16 strikeouts, 2.25 ERA, 0.94 WHIP. It's also going to be Caleb Smith, a guy he traded for with Frank. Caleb Smith, 12 innings, a win, a loss, 2 homers, 5 walks, 13 strikeouts, 3.75 ERA, 1.25 WHIP. And finally, a guy I dropped because he did not get the closing job like I had anticipated. It's Ty Buttrey. 1 relief appearance, an inning and 2/3, all clean, 2 strikeouts, and 0.60 WHIP. I give it to Ty Buttrey because he picked him up on Saturday, and he got into the game, I believe, on Sunday, which would be the one that tied the category for him. Anything else? I mean, I feel like we've kind of hit on where Jason and Nick are going to be going forward.
Well, where do you think Jason ends up here? Because based on his schedule, I realize that he still has to go through the gauntlet. This is the first part of it for him. He's got me, he's got Bobby, he's got you.
And then he gets James Santangelo and Ari to finish the season.
Not easy.
I think he's out, man. I think one of these teams is going to be the... Look, I don't think the top 6 teams will sit as it is by season's end.
Not necessarily. No, of course not.
Right? I think at least one person gets bumped out. And for me, a guy who's been in the league for as long as Jason has, I know he's pushing for this. I know he's trying really hard for this. But when you look at the schedule that he has, and you look at the schedule that, say, Jimmy has, which is a lot more favorable, you look at the schedule that he has and the schedule that, say, Bobby has, it's a lot more favorable. You look at the schedule that he has versus the schedule that I have, it's fairly favorable.
Right. No, you're right. As far as the schedule goes, he's just starting to deal with it now. He's got a little lead on me. I already have 3 RBIs and 2 doubles on the bench and a bad start from Tanaka. So he's in the right direction.
Yes.
And if he can somehow beat me this week, something like an 11-7 win, something like a 12-8, anything like that, and he's definitely still treading water with 4 weeks to go, and he's in good shape.
Sure,
so
but at the same time, if he just sits there and treads water, and I get a big win, I'll jump over him,
right,
and then he continues to tread water, and
so you figure maybe it's pretty important in these next 5 weeks for him to have one lopsided win, because there's this possibility that he might have to take a lopsided loss at some point. So to just kind of offset that, at some point he's probably going to need to do that. Yeah, and
these teams behind him are not going to quit here. You got Chris Levy, who's got a really favorable schedule coming down the pipe here. He can jump him. Mike Sherman is coming. Ari's coming. He's got a lot of teams right behind him. Starting with the tie that he has with Jimmy, better schedule for Jimmy. Me, better schedule for me. Bobby, better schedule for Bobby. Chris, much better schedule for Chris. And it's Sherman and Ari who are incredibly hot.
James McCloskey, we mentioned he's got a great ending.
Yeah. So, and the only 2 other teams are you and Mike Haber. So, for me, I think he's the guy who falls out because of his schedule. Now, prove me wrong. Jason, please, go prove me wrong. Go make the playoffs. Bump me out. Do what you do. But for me, it's going to be rough for him. It's going to be the toughest part of it is going to be coming up. And at the same time, I say that other people have better schedules. That's not to say they're not difficult. Mine is. Bobby's is pretty tough. Bobby's going to have to earn it to get in. Obviously, Ari and Mike Sherman are going to have to earn their way in. I just think, if somebody's going to fall out, it could be Jason with the hardest schedule of all of us.
Maybe, but his pitching has been pretty solid throughout the year. How about 12-5 in innings pitched, 13-2-2 in wins? That's great. 9-7 in losses. The 12-4 in saves, 6-7 in home runs. That's an under 500 one. Walks given up is 6-10, but 12-5 in strikeouts, 12-5 in ERA, 14-3 in WHIP. So Jason's in the right direction. He's got the pitching staff. We know how important pitching is in this league. So I'll give him credit where credit is due there, because right now I think he's got the pieces in motion. I understand someone's going to fall. Yeah. So if you have to pick someone, you're making a bold pick there, Joe.
I am.
But I do think that, when all is said and done, he has the team that can win 5 weeks in a row and maybe end up even in a bye. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll have to see. All right. We're back, and we're going to jump to another matchup here. It's going to be Bobby Russo, Angels in the Trout Field, against James Santangelo, Snell My Shorts. Bobby gets a good win here, 13-8. It keeps him healthy. It keeps him right in that 7th spot, right on the outside looking in. Bobby wins by 2 steals, a loss, a complete game, and 2 saves. James wins by 1 strikeout by a pitcher, and they tied in triples. For Bobby this week, he went 6 for 28. That's a .214 batting average. 4 runs, 2 homers, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts. Nothing there can change anything. His moves this week, offensively, it left a little bit to be desired. Mitch Moreland went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Tyler Flowers went 0 for 3. He did get a couple of good ones in there. Tucker Barnhart gave him a good game. Raimel Tapia gave him an RBI. And Eric Thames gave him a run. As far as, pitching is concerned, Bobby had a fucking ridiculous week. He pitched to a 186 ERA and an 085 whip over 48 and a third. He didn't win wins, which I found interesting. But the complete game is what I find most interesting. And Benny, I've talked about this before, man. He gets a Max Fried 6-inning range-shortened complete game. And instead of it being a 12-8 win, it's 13-8. And that's certainly something to point out when, every matchup counts. Every single stat counts. Instead of him being...
I realize, and there's been maybe, this is probably the 6th or 7th range-shortened complete game that we've seen. So
yeah.
You're absolutely right. It certainly has made a difference. There's also been some very legitimate complete games
Absolutely.
Where you almost think it's appropriate that they get it. But I hear you. Every stat matters. There have been moments in the season where Bobby has now, gotten that, a stat by one, or just tied a stat and kept him in this area. So right now, Bobby is doing everything he needs to do to stay in this race, and he's got 2 tough matchups in a row, and then just go from there.
Yep. But the thing I find incredibly crazy is the 186 ERA and the 85 WHIP. That's just ridiculous, and we'll highlight that when we get to his pitchers. But to have 48 in the third and a 186, and to only lose strikeouts by 1, I think there it may have been worth streaming a starter. He was already losing homers. He was way ahead in walks. You're not going to see a starter give up 9 walks. He was way ahead in relief appearances. If he can just get one more solid start, even if it balloons his ERA to call it 2.5,
right.
He still wins that by 2 runs.
One bad play, though, Joe. One bad play, and then he loses losses.
You're right.
He takes that category by 1. So there might have been this reservation, and it came down to what? Pedro Baez for James goes into that Dodgers game. That might have not even happened if the game start to change.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers end up putting in Pedro Baez. He gets 2
strikeouts.
And he goes from losing that category to winning the category as far as James goes. And Bobby ends up losing that category. That's a tough beat. That's a tough beat right there. But at the same time, I think that just avoiding that loss, Bobby was hoping for the best. He knew that James couldn't catch him in innings, and he just figured, it's going to take a lot for James to win that category, and that's what ended up happening. It's unfortunate, but just like that complete game he got, there's also some bad beats that Bobby took as well.
Yeah. Offensively for Bobby, I do want to point one thing out. He won, runs, homers, RBIs, steals, and walks, and he won those fairly convincingly. His team didn't hit for shit, though. 228 average, and there were 2 days back-to-back. It was Wednesday and Thursday. His entire team hit 130 on Wednesday and 143 on Thursday.
And then what on Sunday? Because that was the big difference here when on-base percentage was on the line.
Sunday, his team hit 267 with a 312 on base.
Yeah, and that was the difference because James on Sunday benched all his players saying, come get my 344 on base. That's better than a 344 on base percentage. And he knew that there was a good chance that Bobby, who has had some pretty disappointing days, he was a little bit better on Friday and Saturday.
Sure.
So Bobby had picked it up a little bit, and James just dared him to have one good day, and he just didn't. He just didn't deliver in that day.
Right.
So at the same time, this is not a double up like it almost was. But at the same time, I give James Santangelo a lot of credit here to at least chip away. This is not necessarily a spoiled job because Bobby does what he has to do, but the other managers are thinking, hey, thanks for taking 8 from this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 4 James on his bench. Now, again, with you, I split it between with and without Sunday. I did the same thing with James here because he did not play an offensive player on Sunday. So without Sunday, he went 5 for 26. That's a 192 batting average. 2 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. If you include Sunday, he went 16 for 64. That's a 250 batting average. So a good 60-point clip comes up just on Sunday.
Right.
5 runs, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, a steal, 4 walks, and 15 strikeouts.
None of it would have mattered.
None of it would have mattered at all. At all. It wouldn't have mattered. James only makes 3 moves. He picks up Jimmy Yacobonis late to try to, I guess, go after innings. It was on Sunday. I guess he was trying to go for innings or strikeouts. Probably strikeouts. And he ends up not getting anything from Yacobonis because the guy only went an inning, walked 2 guys, and was done. He didn't get anything from the guy. He took Trent Thornton on a bad start.
Let me tell you something. That was a reach because Jake Arrieta was accidentally sat.
Oh.
Or it was something like it was intentional because he didn't think. I want to know that it was Philly against
San Francisco.
Okay, so yeah, that was an intentional benching.
Okay.
And I was a little confused by this. Do you have that day in front of you?
I have his line for that day, yes.
Okay, so Brandon Belt, I think, was also benched that day?
That was a different day. Oh, no, wait, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. Belt went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a strikeout on the bench, and Profar was 0 for 3 with an RBI and an error at first base.
Okay, and then we look down and we see that Jake Arrieta pitched pretty well, and we know that he was taken out after 4 innings, I think?
4 innings, and 5 strikeouts, a walk.
Right. He didn't end up getting the win because he doesn't go 5 innings,
right.
And they were just kind of being cautious with Arrieta, the pitch count, this and that. I think there was something going on with his arm or his leg. I couldn't really recall. But anyway, it was a shortened start. And the response, because James realized, now first, before I even get into the response, now you think about it this way. If Belt is benched, right, and you're benching Arrieta, so what you're trying to say is that you think Arrieta is going to have a bad game except for against Belt?
Yeah, that's weird.
You know what I mean? Now he looked at the matchups and he said that Arrieta, something like Bell has like a 136 average. He's like 2 for 12 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And I understand you look at the matchups, but I'm looking at the logic.
Yeah.
You know? If you're going to tell me that Brandon Belt isn't going to do that day, and that's a corner part in the line, so he's going to be bad that day, but like everyone else is going to kill it against him, like I just didn't really see the logic there if it was an intentional benching for Arrieta or an intentional benching for Belt. Whatever it was, I mean, that was kind of a surprise to me based on the rationale of an assumption of what will go down during the game. I hear you say this guy's bad against this guy and this guy's going to play. I don't know. It didn't seem like a
logically it doesn't seem to play right, and obviously It didn't pay off for him. In fact, that whole day, his entire team hit 172, which is the same day that Bobby's team hit 143.
Right.
So Bobby kind of lucks out there.
Right, and I say in this case, either play both or bench both.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what he did. But in this case, it's just it's a little different. You know,
yeah.
If you're telling me the logic that he's not going to have a good day, chances are this guy will have a good day.
Yeah.
So the response was picking up this guy Thornton.
Who
and what happened?
Pitched well.
He actually has a better line than Arrieta for the day in what he actually needed going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So James actually makes out, he gets a win out of it. You know, that was very important going forward for the rest of the way. That wouldn't have happened with Arrieta. He gets an extra inning out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I get that Arrieta was a scoreless
two extra
inning.
innings.
Right, 2 extra innings, and I understand that Arrieta had a 0 ERA, so I guess technically over those 4 innings.
No, Arrieta gave up one earned run, so it was a 2.25 ERA. Thornton also
really?
gave up.
I don't know why I thought it was scoreless.
Thornton gave up 1 earned run. It's a 1.50 ERA with an 83 WHIP, only 2 strikeouts. So Arrieta does get more strikeouts, but at the end of the day, James wins the strikeout.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, he makes a mistake, and he makes up for the mistake with making a play for a guy that I was considering, but I thought might be a little crazy to pick up this guy Thornton.
Yeah, he had been awful coming into this start. He had been absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I wonder what James is going to do there, but we'll see.
Yeah. July 15th, he goes up against Boston, inning and a third, a homer, 3 walks, a 33-plus ERA. The next start is against Detroit. So you think, okay, this is going to be a bounce-back start. 3 innings, 12 ERA, 133 whip. It's like there was absolutely nothing that told you that this start against Baltimore in Camden Yards was going to be as good as it was.
Right.
And today, he goes against Tampa. Does James have him in the lineup? Is a good question, Joe. Let's answer that question, Joe. The answer is no. As of this moment, Trent Thornton and Jake Arrieta are on his bench.
Are being benched, yeah. On
So-
Tuesday, they'll get 2 more. They'll get another start later on. Maybe that's what he's thinking. But what made me question anything was the fact that, like, there was a chance here that James wasn't going to make the minimum.
Yeah.
You know, like, him going into Sunday, if he didn't have Tanner Roark, he was going to be in trouble because all that would have happened was Bobby was going to yank every single starter so that James couldn't make the minimum. And James would have had to rely on relievers to get 4 more innings.
Yeah.
Now, how many innings besides the Roark start did James have on Sunday? We know
2.
about the Pedro Baez.
2.
And there was one other relief appearance.
No, it was the Jimmy Yacobonis stream. He got 1 inning out of Yacobonis, and he got a Pedro Baez relief appearance. That's it. Without Roark, he
so
blows
the
this.
Yacobonis thing wouldn't have happened because Bobby would have probably taken that guy.
Sure.
So if he doesn't have Roark, that puts Bobby in the playoffs probably.
Oh, yeah.
With James missing the minimum. So, like, this is kind of a crazy matchup. Like, we've talked about a lot of insane things that have happened over the matches, but, like, that's one thing that just almost happened this year, and it becomes whether it could have happened. It certainly could have, because at the end of the day, none of us knew Roark was starting on Sunday. I think that was like kind of a last-minute thing, but that was definitely something that I noticed in this matchup that almost changed the whole tide of the entire league.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Bobby gets the good win here, and you know he's in a good spot. He's in a really great spot. The pitching was fantastic for him. Let's jump to their key players this week. Bobby's key players offensively. We're gonna hit on Ketel Marte again because this guy just does not stop hitting. 333 average, 462 on base, 7 runs, a triple. It's a triple that ties the category. 2 homers, 4 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, and only 1 strikeout all week. He lost strikeouts, but only having 1 strikeout from a star player like Ketel Marte, huge. Nick Ahmed. Bobby texted me on Sunday, and he said, how about that Nick Ahmed pickup to get me one more stolen base? And he's absolutely right. He went 1 for 3 for the day, got a walk, so it's a 500 on base percentage, 2 RBIs, a double, the steal, and a walk. It was huge. As well, I'm going to highlight Brian Anderson. And I'll get to Brian Anderson further in a second, but Brian Anderson had a good week for him as well. 188 average you don't like, 316 on base you'll take, 3 runs, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, another steal, 2 walks, and a strikeout. Now, Brian Anderson, Bobby ended up dropping. And he ended up dropping Brian Anderson on the 2nd, which was Friday. He dropped Brian Anderson for Tyler Flowers so he could have a catcher that day who went 0 for 3. Brian Anderson then goes through waivers. And waivers is what, a day?
Yeah.
Okay, so he does not have the opportunity to pick him up on Saturday. Sunday, nobody picks him up. And here I am coming into Monday against Bobby. And Bobby does not have a right fielder in play because of scheduling. And I see Brian Anderson on his team. And I knew that Bobby liked Brian Anderson because he played him for the vast majority of this week against James. So I picked him up. And I played him at third base instead of Miguel Rojas because I felt like this was the better matchup against, Jake DeGrom and then whoever the Mets were throwing in the nightcap. All this kid did for me was go 4 for 7 with 3 runs and 3 doubles yesterday against the very team that dropped him. Thanks, Bobby.
I'd like to throw in another key player here, just
Sure.
because it's someone that we talked about a lot on the show.
Okay.
That's Brett Gardner.
Sure.
Brett had 3 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, a stolen base, just another one that, he won that category by 2. So I really think every guy that we've talked about, Ahmed getting a steal, Marte getting a steal, it's just another steal that he grabbed, a walk, 2 strikeouts, 364 average, and a 417 on base percentage. That's what he drafted. I mean, it's been a tough season for him based on, the hierarchy, for lack of a better term, the powers that be that decide that this guy is an older player now. He's 36 years old. He's not getting any younger. The speed, the bat speed, all these, elements, they're going to start to deteriorate eventually. They've got a lot of outfielders. They've got a lot of young talent. He's not going to see the same kind of playing time. So it's been tough to decide when to play him and when to sit him on the days that he's playing. So Bobby made good use of Brett Gardner, and he helped him out here.
Absolutely. The one thing I'd want to highlight here with Bobby's team, again, he only hit 228 for the week. You look at Josh Bell, who hit 190. You look at Lorenzo Cain, who hit 125. And you look at Matt Chapman, a guy he traded for, 053 for the week with a 174 on base. It's rough. It's a rough week offensively. And yet he still wins homers going away, wins runs going away, wins RBIs running away. So those 3 major power categories he absolutely gets a hold of. But, his day-to-day hitting just didn't show up. Pitching-wise for Bobby, and here's where things get awesome. 6 innings out of Max Fried for the complete game, a win, 4 strikeouts, 1 earned. It's a 1.50 ERA and an 0.67 WHIP. Noah Syndergaard goes 14 1/3, 1 earned run over that period of time. That's an 0.63 ERA and 0.70 WHIP. Only 2 walks over 14 1/3. He got 1 win and 14 big strikeouts. He does lose strikeouts by 1, so that kind of hurts. But everything else is absolutely enormous from Syndergaard. And finally, I'll hit Roberto Osuna. And this isn't a knock against like Garrett Cole's 7 innings and a win, or that's basically it. It's those 3 starts or 4 starts, and Yanni Chirinos who did well. But Roberto Osuna gave him 2 relief appearances and 2 saves. And Bobby won the saves category by 2. So you've got to give it to Roberto Osuna there. I
got to throw in Josh Tomlin because he gets the 1 relief appearance, but it's a good one. He throws 2 1/3 inning in that relief appearance. He doesn't give up a run. He gets a strikeout, a .86 WHIP, so he gave up a hit. So this is a guy that I almost picked up, and he threw in a game where it seemed like the bullpen kind of let the game get away. They had a lead, and all of a sudden they were trying to figure out who the hell is going to close this thing out as the trade deadline was approaching on July 31st. It was a day game, and then all of a sudden my guy Sean Newcomb comes in to get the save. He's not capable of doing that. He actually throws just enough to keep the game tied, and then later on they take the lead. Josh Tomlin comes in, he gets the save. This is a guy that I was thinking of grabbing on the 31st. I decided not to. I'm sure we could look at who I decided to get instead. And honestly, I was thinking of going for both of them. It might have been Minter, but maybe that was the day before. But either way, my point is I went for 1 reliever. I was really considering 2. And I look at the stat line that on that day, the 31st, the trade deadline, he got the save, 1 inning pitched, a hit, a walk. So going back to my match just momentarily, that would have been a save to take that category and a walk that would have tied that category. So then I guess we would have probably ended up tying.
Yeah, the 31st you went with Mike Morin instead.
Morin. Well, it was going to be either both of them or just Tomlin, and I ended up just deciding, you know what, I need more moves going forward. Turns out I probably should have went for Tomlin instead, looking back. But anyway, I just wanted to shout out to that guy because Bobby made a good pickup there, and he only helps this awesome ERA that he threw down for 7 days.
Absolutely. For James's key players this week, I'm going to hit on Daniel Murphy. Murphy went 444 with a 474 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, 2 RBIs, a walk, and 1 strikeout. David Dahl as well, 294 average and on base, 3 runs, a double, the triple that tied the category, a homer, and 3 RBIs with 3 strikeouts. And finally, Brandon Belt. Now, we talked about Brandon Belt being benched, and he missed out on a few categories, but he still hit 300 with a 364 on base, a run, 2 doubles, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. It's more of the same. I'm kind of skipping over Mike Moustakas' great average and on base percentage to highlight other guys. But the middle and the meat of James's lineup this week just did not hit. Dexter Fowler did not get a hit. Kyle Schwarber hit 091. Christian Yelich hit 182. It was a bad week, and yet James still wins average and on base percentage. So you'll take it where you can, and let's jump to his pitchers. We talked about all of them already. We talked about Tanner Roark. We talked about Pedro Baez, and we talked about Trent Thornton. All 3 of those guys were absolutely instrumental in getting James the strikeouts category, keeping the homers down, and getting wins. I think that'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, where do you see Bobby now with the tough schedule ahead? Got to deal with Ari and Michael going for, even if Ari and Michael feel like they're out of it, they're not going to stop competing. He's got Uncle Barry on the final week.
Yep.
He's
got me and Jason the next. So the next 4 weeks for Bobby are huge. Me, Jason, Ari, and then Mike Sherman. It's huge. I can see him getting in, but he's gonna, like I've said all along, he's gonna need to earn it, and it starts this week. If he takes a big loss, like say the loss he took to Chris Levy 16-5 back in week 9, that might end his season. But the one thing that Bobby has been able to do, and this is something that I preach to anybody new in this league, win as many as you can, but when you lose, make sure you mitigate the losses to minimal amounts. And Bobby has lost 11-9, 10-9, 13-7 is kind of ugly, 16-5 is very ugly, 12-8 isn't bad, 10-9 isn't bad, 11-8 isn't bad. He lost to you 14-7. That's kind of ugly. But only 3 ugly.
Some of these losses aren't pleasant, and some of them are manageable.
Yes.
But what he hasn't been able to stay consistent with is his hitting. I mean, there's times where he can explode and have a hot week, but at the end, he's sitting in second to last in our league in batting average with a 254 batting average, a 340 on base percentage. It's all right, but the batting basically.
Well, that's going to be basic. The on base percentage is literally just because of Mike Trout.
Right.
Mike Trout getting as many walks as he does is going to raise that batting average to a decent amount. Take Mike Trout out of this lineup and put him with any other of the top guys. Like give Bobby, I don't know, Mookie Betts instead, and you've got a completely different team. You've got a completely different on base percentage. So
yeah, and I just don't know, like these kinds of pitching numbers at the head-to-head, 6-11 in innings pitched, 8-9 in wins, 6-8 in losses, 11-5 in saves is great, 98 home runs is good, 14-3 walks, 6-11 in strikeouts, 9.80 ERA is not bad, 10-7 in WHIP is not bad. All right, so I take it back. It isn't bad. There's just nothing astounding, and probably a lot of this changed because of this most recent week,
Sure.
So I don't know.
I'm on the fence.
Team, and I love the manager. Like I love the work and the effort and what he's able to do week to week with moves and changing what his team looks like and playing to the matchup on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, he's a very good manager, and he's got a good team. It's just to me, it's a really tough schedule, and I don't know. This is a team that I hope he proves me wrong, but this might be one of the ones that I might say has to be on the outside looking in, possibly of an underdog going in for the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the outside looking in right now. He's 2 games back of me for 6th. if I were to rank guys on that cusp, so let's go Jason, Jimmy, myself, Bobby, and Chris. Those are 5 guys.
You might say you could throw James in there. You could throw James McCloskey in that mix, though.
Okay.
I realize, because one loss and he's right there. You
Sure.
know what I mean?
So those 6 guys, ranking them from safest to least safe for the playoffs. My safest team is James McCloskey because of his schedule, because of how he's managed his team.
Right.
Fair. I think he's in. Second, I'm probably going Jimmy. I'll go third. I'll take myself and bet on myself there. Fourth, I'll say Chris, despite the fact that Chris is the furthest out here, and then Bobby and Jason in that order.
Right.
So, but we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. And we will move on.